Good afternoon, everyone,
Hang on, I got it.
and welcome to the February 25th work session day. We're glad to see everyone here with us this afternoon, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first item that we have is our comprehensive annual financial report and audit, which is called a CAFR. So we have Mr. Perrone, and he's going to come up and he'll introduce the guest that's coming with him.
Director of Accounting, and Scott Anderson from Cherry Becker will present the audit.
Thank you.
You're not going to come up?
They did all the work.
Okay.
Well, thank you for having me here today. My name is Scott Anderson. I am the director with Cherry Becker. We completed your audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019, and issued our report on January 30th. And the purpose of my being here today is to present to you the results of our audit. So we are required under our professional standards to plan and perform an audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. Another word for government auditing standards is Yellow Book. Based on those standards, we have several deliverables that are included in your comprehensive annual financial statements. Purpose of an audit is to provide you with reasonable assurance that your financial statements are fairly stated. Reasonable as opposed to absolute. We do not provide absolute assurance. We instead employ sampling techniques and analytical procedures to arrive at this level of reasonable. Now, in these financial statements, which I know you probably have all read from cover to cover, we issued an opinion on page 13. That opinion expresses an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can provide. An unmodified opinion means that we believe that a third-party user of your financial statements can rely on the information therein. In accordance with the Yellow Book, or the government auditing standards, we also issued a report in the back on page 171. The purpose of that report is not to express an opinion. Rather, that report describes our scope in testing compliance with laws, rules, regulations, and internal controls over compliance. Although no opinion is expressed in that report, if we did identify a deficiency in internal controls or an instance of non-compliance, that report would disclose such. That report was clean, meaning it had no identified or reported instances of non-compliance or control deficiencies. On page 173 is a third deliverable. This is our report in accordance with uniform guidance, which is single audit. If your federal spending of federal dollars exceeds a certain threshold, then it triggers this compliance audit. It's compliance with requirements of those federal grants. So that report would express opinion on that. That is a clean report, meaning there are no identified instances of non-compliance nor deficiencies in internal control over compliance with grant requirements. Not included on the slide, but another deliverable in the back of your report is a management letter, which is unique to the state of Florida. It's required by the Auditor General, and there are specific things that are that we're required to address in our audit, and it's listed in that letter. It's a fairly standard letter. The one thing I would point out is we did identify one opportunity for strengthening internal controls, which relates to 4 non-major funds which had overspent on its budget. According to the state statute, when that occurs, the very next board meeting, it's supposed to address that overspending through a budget amendment, and we found that did not occur. Now, there were 4 non-major funds. It was not material. That's why it did not rise to the level of a significant deficiency or a material weakness, which would have been disclosed in our Yellow report. I just wanted to point you to that. There is a corrective action plan that's also listed there to ensure that was rectified and doesn't occur again. As part of our audit, we also issue a standalone letter that looks like this. It's just a 3-page letter. And this letter communicates to the board everything that our professional standards believes is important for you to know about the audit and your role as the governing board. The letter is fairly standard. There are a couple of things that it would disclose. For example, if we, during the course of our audit, identified any audit adjustments, meaning errors in the financial records that needed to be corrected, or if we identified any errors that were not sufficiently material to require them to be corrected, but nevertheless we felt that you would need to know about, that letter would disclose that. This letter shows no audit adjustments or past audit adjustments. During the year, there were 2 accounting standards that were implemented, or at least became effective to the school board. One was GASB 83 on asset retirement obligations, which did not have any impact on the school board. The second is GASB 88, which expands slightly some of your disclosures on your long-term debt. So that was in effect this year, and so there were some slight adjustments to your debt disclosures this year. In the future, there are 2 major accounting standards that would be applied. GASB 87 is an accounting standard that requires you to report all leases on your statement of net position. The current standard only requires capital leases. Operating leases are currently being expensed as they are paid out. The new standard will require all leases to be disclosed or reported on your statement of net position. And that will go effect not this year, but next year. Yes, sir.
Does that include leases that do not extend beyond 1 year?
No, if there is a total 12-month or less maturity, then those would not, you would still expense those.
That helps a little bit.
Yeah. If it's a 12-month lease with a renewal option, you have to take into account the entire renewal period, so that.
Do you have to do present value calculations and
Yeah.
such?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
The other accounting standard that I will bring to your attention is GASB 84 on fiduciary activities. And this is an accounting standard that has a little bit of a controversy with school boards because of your student activity funds. It changes some requirements as to whether or not those are actually fiduciary activities. By and large, I'm finding in the state of Florida, everyone is agreeing that those remain as fiduciary activities, but there are some instances where officials are deeming those no longer to be fiduciary. It all depends on your level of involvement in imposing your will on how those funds get spent. So that's something that should be scrutinized and looked at closely. That's a standard that went into effect on October 1st, and so it's applicable right now. As part of our audit, we look at your internal controls fairly closely. We do not look at your controls in order to express an opinion on them, but rather we use them to understand the environment and determine how to design our audit procedures. This slide summarizes our internal control work. We identified your significant transaction cycles to be financial reporting and close, the cash receipts process, the cash disbursements process, and processing payroll. Those are your significant transaction cycles. We do rotate our testing of internal controls to determine whether or not your controls are operating effectively. The controls that we tested during this year was your disbursement cycle and your payroll cycle. We also, as part of our audit, employ data extraction software to perform some analytical procedures on your journal entry testing to determine if there are any unusual items that unusual relationship between account balances and journal entries, as well as to verify that all journal entries are posted and reviewed by somebody other than the person who posted them. We also take a look at your information technology controls as a way to determine whether or not the output from your financial system is something we can rely on as part of our audit efforts. This slide summarizes all of the audit areas that we focus on after we have assessed your internal controls. I won't go into any detail on this, but suffice it to say we do spend a lot of time going through the actual transactions and balances as part of our audit. I mentioned earlier that we expressed an unmodified opinion on compliance with the grants in accordance with the single audit or uniform grant guidance. The program that was selected as a major program this year was Title I, which represents approximately 23% of your total federal spending in the year. Now that concludes the required communications as far as our professional standards are concerned. The rest of this presentation is just an analytical look at the results of operations or the results of your financial statements. This first one is a snapshot of your general fund revenue, your general fund being your main operating fund of the school board. You'll notice that your total revenue increased by $35.9 million or 4.8%. Most of that increase was funding from the state. Florida Education Finance Program went up from $430 million to $455 million every year. As you might expect on the expense side, we see a proportional increase. Total expenditures increased $36.5 million or 4.6%. Please excuse a slight typo on the 2019 pie chart. The underlying data is correct, but the caption was not correct on the instructional services, which is actually $616 million. So instructional services increased by approximately $19 million during the year. This slide shows the breakdown of the general fund balance. Fund balance being the difference between your assets and your liabilities, the amount that's available for future use. It increased by $2 million. There were some changes within the categories. Unassigned decreased by approximately $4 million, while your non-spendable portion, which is your inventory and prepaid expenses, increased by 3.5 million. And your restricted, which relates to federal grants, federal and state grants, increased by approximately $3 million. This slide analyzes the total cash and investments for the entire district. Total cash and investments, as you'll see, increased by $218 million, or 86%. This is a timing difference. This was due to a debt refunding that occurred, not refunding, a debt issuance, sales tax bond that occurred in June. And so as of June 30th, there was all that cash sitting there, and it was put into Florida Fixed Income Trust. All the other categories were fairly similar. Capital assets decreased by $12 million. There's a little bit more in the numbers there. About $32 million of capital asset additions, so money that was spent to construct or improve existing capital assets, offset by approximately $44 million of depreciation during the year. This is a summary of long-term liabilities. Total liabilities increased by $160.9 million, or 20%. Again, as your cash investment increased, so did your liabilities, since this came from a sales tax bond towards the end of the year. I will point out your largest liability remains your net pension liability, which increased by about $7 million. Yes, sir.
Is that the portion of the pension liability imposed by the state of Florida?
I don't know about the word imposed, but yeah, you're part of the state retirement system, and so this is your proportionate share.
But yet we will never incur that liability.
Well, you have incurred the liability, but if you mean you'll never pay that out.
We'll never pay it out.
You pay it through contributions each year, and then the retirement system is who pays your entire.
So are those contributions we've already made or will make in the future?
You make every year.
Okay.
Last year, and in fact, the comprehensive annual financial statement has all the information that you ever will want to know about this. It's just a matter of finding it. On page 92 and 93 is the required supplementary information, and it'll tell you how much you've contributed in each of the years. So this year, for example, it was approximately $38 million.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what I was. The state's about to jack that up this year considerably. even though the pension is one of the best funded in the country. Mike could tell you about that.
What's that?
Tell us,
But-
Mike.
but- Yeah, about the
So
pension.
there's a proposal to increase the amount we would put in this year by like 3 or 4 times what they've done in the past, and they're still fighting that out and talking about it, so hopefully they're gonna spread it out over the next 3 or 4 years, the amount they want to increase. They wanna do it all like a 5 or 6%, all at once this year, which would be like an $8 million hit to the district, and they're only giving us 6, so that's kind of where, Ms. Dodge, and Ms. Pleasant had an article written, or an update on that, where we're getting this in base student allocation, but they're charging us this, and that it really was the FRS. So, we'll see what happens, but hopefully they'll be able to get that down so we can realize some of those new revenues this year. I'll keep you posted, and Wendy will every week when she does her updates.
Just to remind you, that number is a net number. So it's the total pension liability less the funded portion. So it's about 85% funded, so your share, even after it's 85% funded, is $458 million, so that's a big number. There are a lot of assumptions that go into that number, one being the discount rate. On page 80 of your CAFR, it shows the sensitivity of this liability based on the discount rate used. So if your discount rate was 1% higher, it would decrease the liability by almost $200 million. If it was 1% lower, it would increase it by $250 million. And so that is a liability that you don't have a lot of control over. It will fluctuate, and the state's just trying to fully fund it so that will.
But it's an estimate,
It is an estimate. Absolutely.
and so we're paying cash on an estimate.
Well, the estimate's based on the contributions that you're paying. But yeah, ultimately, they're gonna base that contribution rate on how much they expect the liability to ultimately do.
Will we actually end up paying that amount out in cash at some
Over
point in
time.
time?
But there's actuarial assumptions, there's mortality tables, there's lots of factors that play into that. Yeah.
What's the time horizon on that? Like it's looking out into the future. Is there a solid? Is that like 30 years, 50 years? Is there a?
So you're asking about mortality tables. It's looking at the average age of employees versus mortality tables. And so there's not a set time they go out. They take.
It takes who exists today
Yes.
and okay, I gotcha.
You're not unique as far as the question you're asking. We have been, we've had this standard now for 4 or 5 years, and we still get questions about that liability because it's a big number. The good news is that the OPEB standard, which went into effect last year, you do recognize an OPEB liability, and it is not funded, but it's only $46 million. And for some organizations, that OPEB liability is just as big as their pension liability. So that's. So in summary, it was a smooth audit. Both my team and Lisa's team worked very hard to get this out by the end of January. We appreciate their cooperation. Everyone we asked to speak to and everything we asked to see was made readily available to us throughout the audit. It takes a lot of work to get to the point where, so I appreciate Lisa and Mike's help. And with that, I'll open it up to any other questions that you may have.
Mr. Wilson?
Well, I don't have a question, I have a comment. And I'd just like to say, this is a remarkable report for an organization this size. And it's the kind of thing that we should be celebrating and should be announcing. And I'm glad to see that Kimberly's here from the Ledger, because it's the kind of thing we want to make sure the public is aware of as we talk about a possible referendum. It's a clean report, an excellent report, and again, the kind of thing we want our community to know about as we move forward, especially, as I think about it, March, I know this isn't an issue for you, but it's an issue for us as we move forward with a possible referendum. So, just want to say kudos to Mike and his team, and thank you for all that you do.
Ms. Fields?
I want to reiterate what Mr. Wilson just said. We've come a long ways. and it's because of the hard work of the staff. And just want to commend them for their hard work and let them know that we really appreciate their efforts, because we know that it's been a yeoman's job to get us where we are today. So thank everybody for that.
And also, thank you for the very concise and clear responses to the questions. Those were exceptionally knowledgeable responses. Thank you.
Ms. Cunningham?
And I too want to commend our staff, Mr. Prone and his department, and all those behind the scenes who aren't in the room here today. I served on the Audit Committee for many years, probably 10 years, and we've been working towards days like this. And I know we continually have improved over the years, and I just want to thank our staff and everybody involved for the many nights and weekends that have been spent to make sure that our financial standings are where they need to be. I mean, after all, we are taking taxpayer dollars and serving our children, and so there's nothing more important to me than the finances being appropriate and being spent accordingly. So thank you for y'all's work. I appreciate that. And to our staff behind the scenes, thank you so much, because I know a lot goes on that we are not aware of to get us to this point. So it's a wonderful audit, and we thank you so much.
Okay. All right, thank you. The next item coming before you, we have 2 charter presentations today. So I thought I saw Candy and Vicky. You want to come? Is Vicky coming up with you, Candy?
No, we're just gonna do a
Oh,
quick
okay.
review, and then the applicants are gonna present.
All right.
So
Well, it's good to see you, Vicky.
Yes, you know we can't do it without Vicky.
I know.
She's our guru.
She is.
She is.
So good afternoon. As you know, we did have 2 charter applicants apply for this round of charter applications. You have received those either electronically and or in a hard copy as requested. So today we do have the applicants here to present. We've asked them to limit to about 5 minutes to honor your time, but also provides an additional opportunity for you to ask some clarifying questions. So we are going to start with Miasquelo Montessori. You may be familiar with that one. Ms. Kelly De La Cruz, will you come up? Introduce yourself again. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Kelly De La Cruz. I'm going to put this on slideshow. And I'm presenting Miasquelo Montessori. The mission of Miasquelo Montessori is to provide an equitable, 2-way dual language immersion Montessori education to a diverse group of learners from preschool through 8th grade. As you're aware, there's been a tremendous growth in the Hispanic population in Polk County. From 2005 to 2017, it more than doubled. And in the 3 years since, with Hurricane Maria and with earthquakes from Puerto Rico and with political and economic turmoil in South and Central America, that number has increased even further. Polk County has the 8th highest percent of English language learners in Florida, and the majority of those students speak Spanish as their primary language. Polk County students who are English language learners experience a significant academic achievement gap, and that increases as they get older. So as you can see, from 3rd grade through 6th grade, the passing rate for students in the FSA who are English language learners decreases considerably. This is partially because in the beginning, when they enter school, they're learning social language for a great deal of time, while their English native peers are learning content knowledge. But there's a strong body of research that supports dual language immersion as a very powerful approach to addressing the disparity in academic performance for English language learners. And part of that is because if students are learning in their primary language, the knowledge that they have is that big circle in the middle, and it transfers between languages. So that content knowledge that they would have missed while they were learning while they were learning English, they now get to learn, and then it's just a vocabulary linking. So there's a need for this type of school because Polk County has a demand for Montessori and a demand for dual language learning. Lakeland Montessori, Cypress Junction Montessori, and Magnolia Montessori are unable to accommodate over 3,000 applications each year. So there's clearly a demand for expanded options for Montessori in Polk County. But there's also a demand for dual language learning. Polk County has one dual language K-2 program in Haines City, at least to my knowledge. There may be another one that I don't know about, but when I spoke with World Languages, that's what they confirmed. So that means that there's no opportunities in South Lakeland, Bartow, or Mulberry, or in fact in Polk County, for most students to become fluent in both English and Spanish, especially in elementary school. And our school has a strong demonstrated interest. We have 100 families on our interested list, and they have over 2,000 students, or 200, sorry, that would be a lot of children. They have 200 students combined. Mi Escuela Montessori will provide their core academic instruction in both English and Spanish in a multi-grade Montessori classroom with project-based learning, hands-on lessons, and individual sequenced small group and individual lessons, and sequenced guided and independent practice. And we have a strong MTSS framework towards standards mastery. Our targeted enrollment in year 1 is 206 students in kindergarten through 4th grade, and that will grow by 1 grade level each year through year 5, when we'll be fully implemented K-8 with 446 students. Our targeted demographics is 50% of our students. We hope to draw English language learners. We also hope to mirror Polk County's demographics in other areas. For example, the area of economically disadvantaged, students with IEPs who are in exceptional education. The county's is 13.3%, and we've aimed to match that, and students with gifted EPs as a separate category, and we aim to match the county in that as well. Our targeted area is Highland City, Mulberry, Bartow, and from there we would also be able to pull from Fort Meade, Juanita, and Eloise. We have included transportation in our budget so that we can accommodate that. Our founding board, all of the people on our founding board are from Polk County. It's myself, Joyce Bentley, Lyndia Lawson, Dan Medina, Martin Marmol, John Sierra, Lori Albritton, Kathleen Drake Nelson. Our board structure is 3 to 11 members with 2 years renewable terms, a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, and we have a roll up for our executive roles. And we are a 501c3 not-for-profit. We've made considerable efforts to work with the county. We have communicated via email and sometimes in person with ESE, ESOL, transportation, school safety, food services, K-12, curriculum and instruction, and world languages. In many of those cases, we sent portions of our application to them prior to submitting and offered them the opportunity to give us critique and let us know areas that they wanted to see changed. We also met with the with people in the finance committee, and we shared our budget with them a month before we submitted, and met with their team so that they could give us recommendations and feedback on our budget. And I've communicated via email, phone, and in-person meetings with school board members. And then finally, we have really worked very, very hard to form community collaborations and to reach out to local governance, to organizations that are serving the students that we are hoping to draw to our school. And so this is a portion of our list. Many of these people also submitted, or many of these organizations also submitted letters of support. Thank you. I think I made it in the 5 minutes this time.
Are there any questions? Ms. Delphos, any questions? Ms. Courtney?
I just want to ask if you had any follow-up on the other issue we had talked about with the weighted.
Yep, so I sent an email to the board at the beginning of the summer and let them know that I have been trying to work. Currently, charter law prohibits charter schools from using a tool that magnet schools are able to use to integrate their schools. We're not able to use weighted lotteries. And I know that when Polk County started using weighted lotteries for their magnet programs, they were able to take schools that appeared to be segregating portions of the student populations, and they were able to create a much more representative school. But charter schools aren't allowed to do that. There's actually a law that specifically says that we can't. And so many states across the United States are working to change that law, because the Department of Education, the United States Department of Education actually encourages the use of weighted lotteries. And so I spent a lot of time this summer reaching out to representatives. I met with Representative Jennifer Sullivan, Representative Melanie Bell, Senator Kelly Stargell, and I also communicated with all of the coalition and the consortium, and so far there's no movement in that, although I will say that that everybody that I spoke with was very open to that. At the charter school conference, I did chase down Corcoran and let him know to expect my email, and I sent that email as well. But so far, I have not seen it on the legislative agenda for anybody so far.
Ms. Fields?
First of all, I want to commend you for getting with the staff and making sure that you were on the right path, because I know you tried this before.
Thank you.
I think that this is a very unique opportunity for a lot of the kids in our county. The question that I have is, are you anticipating applying for startup funds?
Yes, so once, assuming that we are approved, we will of course apply for the charter school program grant, and that's a competitive grant, so it's not guaranteed, but I think that we did have a consultant review our application and give us some feedback so that we would make sure that we addressed areas that might be red flags for us to not get that funding, so we're hopeful of that. I also applied for the New School Venture Fund grant through the Walton Foundation. It's a $215,000 grant. I did recently find out that we made it to the final round for that. We were in I think it was 20 schools were chosen, and we were in the 30 that were interviewed. But I received notification that we did not receive that funding, but they do want us to apply for their funding cycle in January, and so that would potentially be an additional $300,000 of outside funds. And then I am currently a finalist for the Diverse Charter School Coalition's Unify Ed Fellowship, and that is a fellowship that would coach me and help train me in leading a diverse charter school, because there's a lot of different considerations that have to be taken into account that maybe someone who's doesn't have that same goal might not have to target as much. So for example, the diversity, equity, and inclusion statement, how are we going to draw a diverse staff so that the students that we're serving see their own faces represented in their teachers. And then our board did recently just form a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, so that as we are beginning that move forward into recruiting teachers and training, providing training, that we keep that in consideration.
So if you don't get the startup funds to the federal government, then you all have other things that you're thinking that could supplement?
Our budget that we created is not based on us getting any of that funding at all. We applied for pre-approval for a $90,000 grant through Enterprise Florida, which is a small business grant, and people on our board have agreed to guarantee the 50% that we would have to. And our budget is entirely based on us using that funding, and is fully funded for every year just using the money from the state. So we haven't taken any consideration of any kind of outside funding in how we set our budget. If we get that outside funding, it means that we'll be able to do more, and but we are able to cover all of the basics within our budget without any kind of outside funding.
Thank you.
Thank you, those are great questions.
Mr. Townsend? Then Ms. Miller.
Question and a couple of quick comments. You mentioned the one dual language programming. I believe that's at Sandhill. And
Yes.
Did you study that at all? Are you applying that here, or is it really just?
No, actually, Sandhill has a model very similar to ours in many ways. I believe that they have the 90-10 in the kindergarten. They may have, I'm not sure if they have a slower jump up. So language allocation is a really tricky piece in running a dual language program, and the research does not show that there's one approach that's stronger than the other, but it does show that having a kindergarten program that really reinforces the non-dominant language of society, so Spanish. So we will have, similar to Sandhill and similar to the programs that were run here in Polk County previously, a 90-10 program in kindergarten. But when it hits the first through third grade group, we're doing a 50-50 model.
Okay.
And partially that's because I don't know what the structure was in terms of students needing to take assessments, and previously, I don't know when those previous programs were, but I know that in the state of Florida, it's really important that our third grade students have the resources they need so that they're able to move forward into fourth grade.
Let me just say, I think couple things for us and one thing for you. I think if every charter school approached us with this kind of good faith, this is last meeting I kind of divided charter schools into different groups. I think this is in a group that's built to be complementary and built to extend what we do, and perhaps provide a model that we can bring back into our own schools. Like that's what it was originally supposed to be. And so I commend you for this. I commend you for working through it as hard as you are, because I know how serious you are about it. I think I appreciate you bringing those stats about the Hispanic growth, and I think one of the big problems we have is we don't have anywhere near enough Hispanic administrators. We're doing a little better on teachers, but we're way low, like out of whack, and it's something we need to work on as a district. And I'm glad you're here to sort of prompt that indirectly. I think that's basically it. Those are two important points, and I thank you for sticking with us and working with us.
Thank you. And I will say Polk County has done quite a bit with trying to draw in diverse leaders. I've seen a lot in, just recently with the administrator, their master's degree programs that are trying very hard to draw in other people. So I definitely think it's a conversation that is not only on my heart, but obviously on the heart of all of you all. And I will also mention that that there are local colleges that are very open to partnerships. I know Florida Southern, there's a professor at Florida Southern who's trying really hard to push for a dual language program. So, you know, it might be that we're just on the cusp of something happening, I hope.
Well, and I just wanted to add, one of the things about the dual language program at Sandhill that I understand is that the non-Spanish speaking children really benefit from it as well. Not just in fluency with Spanish, but English fluency. The going back and forth, the translation skills are incredibly important. I've talked a lot about creating a language academy. I'm actually not sure that just expanding these types of programs isn't the most efficient way to do it, and so I you know, it's a big priority for me, and I agree that everybody's aware of the problem,
Yeah.
but it's the outcomes aren't there yet, and we need to, we're just way behind. I mean, I think last time I saw we're like 8% Hispanic administrators or something like that, with 33% kids. So it's just something that's going to take a lot of concerted effort over time.
But, and thank you, we are addressing that. We're addressing not only just Hispanics, but we have other areas that are Haitian Creole and African American. We have been trying to look at making sure that our administrators in our system mirror what our districts look like. And that's what we've been doing. So you're absolutely correct. That is happening throughout the county right now. And thank you for being very obvious and noticing that. Okay. Ms. Miller and then Ms. Reynolds.
Hello.
Hi.
I do want to commend you on this. This is what we talk about, why charters were made. You know, this is something that you're going to provide for students that we don't have across our district here. The need is very high. My question for students who need supports, a lot of times the barriers in when English is a second language to families is identifying that early on. Can you talk about some of things you'll be doing to identify those opportunities for students who may need further supports or testing for cognitive disabilities? And then what you'll be able to maintain. I don't know, I'm sure you've done a lot of research on how to do that, as far as if you're gonna contract services out, if you're gonna bill Medicaid to get services, which is another great option we just got into recently. So I'd like to hear more about those students.
Okay, yes, definitely. There's the obvious things that Polk County Schools is doing that we will also do, the home language surveys, so that we can try and identify our students as soon as, or, you know, as soon as they come into school. And we're very well aware of the process of how quickly we need to get those students assessed and make sure that they've got a plan in place. But with regards to the students who may require interventions, or students who may require special education services, we've chosen a reading program that is a pretty robust and unfortunately a very expensive reading program. But I know Polk County has used it as a summer intervention program. We chose the American Reading Company's program, and that program has within it, it matches very well with the Montessori approach, because it's got a lot of individual and small group lessons. But within it, it has a lot of formative assessment that is uploaded into a computer, and then it matches both languages. So we can see if a student is progressing in their English reading but not in their Spanish, and we can give them supports in those. We don't have our decision tree for our multi-tiered support system fully developed yet, but it will be similar to the decision tree of how we give interventions, how often we give interventions. It will be similar to what Polk County does for their students. We will have a special education teacher. We have a full-time special education teacher in our budget, with the assumption that we know that we're going to bring in students who have all different kinds of needs. But the interesting thing about a Montessori classroom is that there's a flexibility in how we can use that teacher. So let's say we don't have 13% of our students that require pull-out services. Well, we can use that teacher in an inclusion model so that they're able to support students in that classroom. The other thing is, with a Montessori approach, because it's multi-grade, you have three full grade levels or more of materials within one classroom, which means there's not a stigma associated with needing to take a material off the shelf. As a matter of fact, you can work with a younger student and you can be teaching them, but really you're reinforcing your own understanding of things. When it comes to students who are English language learners and who have special needs, our special education teacher, our position for that, it's going to be a requirement that that teacher is bilingual. And that's one of the few positions in our school that is a bilingual position. We've set up that we can have either resource or inclusion model or consultation. With 206 students, it's highly unlikely that we would have enough students that a student's free and appropriate public education could be served in our class, because it's not appropriate for a student to be in a pull-out program with only 2 students. They need a peer group. But as we grow to 446 students, if we have in our application, we say that anytime that we have that we'll make sure that we maintain a ratio of 1 ESE teacher to 25 students who have IEPs. So if we go over that, then we hire additional staff so that we can ensure we're meeting those needs.
Thank you.
Ms. Ramos?
Kind of going off what some of my colleagues have said, thank you. You've done a ton of work since last year, and your presentation, I think, was night and day from last year. You seemed very nervous, and you've got it down. My one question for that area specifically, looking at Juanita and Eloise, is that they are very high migrant populations. Have you all looked at how to target migrant populations, and what do you do when a student moves to South Carolina, because that's where the strawberries are for the month of February, and those types of things?
That is definitely a very big question mark in my mind, and I would want to work closely with the county in seeing what kind of policies they use. I don't know what you all do with that. I do know that there's a two-sided challenge to that. On one hand, all of our expenses are derived from this very small pool, and so if we have a student who does not show up for months and months, then they potentially miss an FTE cycle, which means that we might not be able to fund something that we would have been able to fund. But I also I want to make sure that any of our practices are equitable in our understanding of those things. So I would want to work with the county to see, as we're in our negotiations, what they would recommend for that, how they address that program, that challenge.
I was really hoping that you would have a great answer for us to copy, because it's something that
Yes,
we face a lot in
unfortunately,
those areas.
it's a tricky piece, and it is trickier even still when you have such a small pool of students.
Right.
And you have a really long waiting list.
Well, I certainly appreciate the fact that it's on your radar and that you're thinking about it. And this is exactly what charter schools were designed to be. This is something completely different that we can't offer in our public schools right now. And that's, so I commend you for bringing it forward and for spending so much time on it.
I know that our CMA is the Redlands Christian Migrant Association. They have a charter school that is specifically targeted for students who are migrant students. And I have reached out to them to see, but their model is very different from ours. Because our students are already in a highly independent classroom, and we're supporting them in learning a second language, and we're accommodating for differences in ability differences. It may not be something that fully fits into our model, but it's definitely on our radar.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you. I too want to congratulate you on this wonderful proposal. They have a saying overseas that a person's worth is increased by the number of languages that they know. And so I can remember years ago when we piloted the dual language program in some of the schools that I serve on the east side of the county. And it was interesting to walk in. 2 of the 4 core classes. 2 were in English and 2 were in Spanish, and then they switched, and it was really kind of cool to observe that. And I know that by learning another language, I always say, reading makes you smart because it can take you to places in the world that maybe you can't personally travel to. But also learning a language creates, they say, I'm not an expert, but creates those little synapses in the brain and provides an opportunity for children's brain growth to occur. So I'm very excited about your proposal. I wish you success, and if you ever kind of need to know about the institutional knowledge in that, I remember one of the principals very dearly, who I think is still around, he's retired, that was very instrumental in doing that at the time, and I know we've got folks, here at the district that may be able to speak as well. But it was wonderful, the kids' growth, not only in core knowledge, but in other classes grew, and it was a win-win for both kids, whether they came in as an English language learner or whether they came in speaking English perfectly. It was a blessing on both ends of the spectrum. So I wish you the best, and as the others have said, anytime we can create a new school and support it when it complements what the district is doing, I think that's wonderful. So best of luck to you in this future endeavor, and I hope we can support you in that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Marta will introduce our next applicant. Who's teaching math, by the way?
All right, so our second presentation will be from Florida High School for Accelerated Learning, Polk County, and their governing board is here to present, so I will turn it over to them and they can introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We are the Florida High School for Accredited Accelerated Learning program for at-risk overage students from high school. We're an accelerated learning school for high school for accelerated learning. We're a program to help at-risk overage students graduate from high school and prepare for post-secondary success. We're a local board, proud of our community, attended school right here in Polk County, and we're excited at the prospect of partnering with Polk County Public Schools to help serve a special student population. Students are dropping out or not graduating from Polk County schools for a host of reasons, through no fault to their own, or to the public schools. These students simply have too many competing life responsibilities, priorities, or obstacles that make attending and thriving in a traditional environment very unlikely. We anticipate our target population to arrive more than 2 years behind their cohorts, 2 years behind their expected grade level, performing at some of the lowest levels in the state exams due to low basic skills in math and reading. Low GPA due to a history of failing grades and struggling with truancy due to their need to juggle school with child care and employment responsibilities. The Lakeland area has been identified as an area in need for a school like ours. Between George Jenkins High School, Kathleen, Lake Gibson, Lakeland High, and Tanner Rock, there have been 914 non-graduates in the last 3 years. We believe these district high schools would significantly benefit from a high-quality option to serve students who need a non-traditional approach with a flexible schedule in order to move forward in their academic careers. I'm Mike Woodhouse. My colleagues on the board are Candace Burns and Nilda Blanco. Nilda and Candace have spent most of their careers in workforce development and routinely work directly with some of the students that attend schools like ours. Although my background is not in education, I'm committed to being part of efforts to bring a better quality of life to our community from an academic standpoint, economic standpoint, for all the citizens of Polk County. After multiple meetings with our selected management company, Accelerated Learning Solutions, reviewing the data, on-site visits, speaking directly with the students, we believe that this charter school will serve a very real need in our county. Accelerated Learning Solutions is SACS accredited, currently manages 15 charter schools in the state of Florida, all earning the highest state rating of commendable. After speaking with several students at one of the replication schools in Orange County, and the impact the charter schools had on their lives, I was all in and proud to serve as chairman of this board. Our governance structure will include approval of the school's operating policies and procedures, its annual budget, and selection of its principal. During our meetings, we will review contractual measures, student outcomes, as well as actual financial results to ensure that the school is effectively meeting all the expectations and commitments to accomplishing our mission. One of the key reasons we selected ALS as our ESP is its track record for strong financial management, ability to fund the school's educational model and the day-to-day operation. We will engage in the management agreement with ALS, thereby ensuring that our school opens on time, on budget, and with all the defined resources needed to effectively accomplish our mission. What I'd like to do now with the remaining of the time is turn it over to my fellow board member, Candace Burns, who will describe our academic and support model.
Absolutely. Well, again, I'm Candace, and thank you so much for your time. I know everybody is so busy. But let me just say, like, it's been a privilege to live and work in Polk County for 15 years. I've partnered with the school board and many agencies, community-based, and this is my passion. My work has been dedicated to the student population that we're reflecting in this demographic. A lot of amazing things are going on with the district and reaching, but there's always a need for more partnerships. And that's one of the things that excites me about ALS and the program designs that they have, because it is an accompaniment to amazing things that are happening, like a professional safety net that helps students be more successful, that don't fit the consistent traditional model. In those program characteristics, some of the things that have excited me the most and that have excited the student population is that flexible scheduling. The offering of the AM and PM options are critical for this model and have been successful, especially because they can go fluidly between AM and PM. It is not a rigid only AM and PM. That's been something that they've touted as something they've liked the most. Basic skills testing and remediation. As any of us in this room know, remediation is key to success, and it's ongoing. It's not one time. It's an ongoing basis, and this school is delivering that by certified teachers, passionate staff that cares about the population they're serving, which is critical to any delivery of any school. Self-paced mastery, which means 3 of us may come in, we come and do different things in according to what we're achieving, and then the supports are calibrated. It's not on that conveyor belt. It is more tailored to their voice and their need. And that blended instruction, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment, but it's really important. The on-site student services, that is housed there in the school, and that's critical for when needs pop up, which by the way they always do, and those needs can be addressed and be discussed, and plans can calibrate and change on a dime. That's really important for the population because this is the way life works. Things happen. Students are coming and then they're not. And what can we do to help that? Transition planning is a key component to the school, which is so important because the academics and getting the diploma is so important, but then what? We need these students to feel that empowerment and that excitement. And then what are your options? We've got college, career and technical training and opportunities. CTE is huge. Workforce and employability skills. That is absolutely critical to success of all of us, including the population. And access to options to onboard to the military. Students in those transition planning options are reflected in the ALS schools in all of those. Like, they are going into all those pathways. They're increasing those skills gap, they're getting recharged, and they're getting back out in their communities and going on to do successful things and plugging back in and igniting their families, because that's what this does. You know, when you change one life, you change others. It's just the way it works. The academic design is the blended instruction model. And the thing that excited me the most when I toured the school many moons ago when I first got exposed in Orlando area to their 5 schools is the way that it was actively a blended classroom setting and it moved on a dime. I seen computer-based instruction. I seen educators doing group sessions, pull-outs, individual tutoring, many things to help the students with all types of topics and needs that was very fluid, and they had the flexibility to be so. And that's really cool because the reality is, for most of us that have come from the education background, when we have a classroom, we do a million things, but there's a million more we wish we could do with them. There's a million more because we always have more to do. And that's one of the things that is so important, which is the wraparound service, the ability to meet their needs where they really exist. One of the key components that's critical and really mimics a community-based school environment is having services of social workers and licensed mental health, which is key to crisis intervention. Most of us know that our mental health struggles in our systems are at an all-time high, right? I mean, as life is changing out here, it's really changing for them. And there's so many things that this wraparound services can assist and help them with. And what I would like to do is a blanket invitation to any member of the board that would love to see any of the schools in Orlando that are actively, right now as we're sitting in this meeting, helping young people change their lives. I would love for you to be able to come out and see one of the 5 schools in Orlando, because you would be welcome to tour that, welcome to see staff, welcome to see just an average day, and it would definitely be worth your time and you'd be welcome to do so. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that you had that opportunity if you wanted to see this actually ongoing. One of the things that I would love to share that goes along with the whole package of this particular model is that it's not one size fits all, and the student voice is heard. And one of the things is a success story. A student that I met, this was years ago, in one of the ALS schools, a student that had went to 3 counties, one of which was Polk County. They were a young person in absolute crisis. This story will be the most of us have heard it, is family dysfunction, extreme crisis. One part went into the system, the welfare system, then back out, placement with family. And so each time we remove a young person from school, we know that when they get back, they are going to be deficient. And they're going to keep being deficient as they try to get back on their feet, and we work for that. This particular student that I met at Chancery, specifically this high school, she had come back to school after deciding that she couldn't get her diploma. It just wasn't possible anymore, and those were her words, not mine. She's like, I'm never gonna get it, I've tried 3 times, it's not gonna happen. And a friend, a student, referral, which is always awesome, told her, come on, just come on over to the school and see, and she tried it. In the midst, before she started the school, she also got pregnant. This happens. She had decided again that she could not make it, she couldn't get her diploma. When she went to Chancery, what I would call this, she got ignited. Right? It was not easy. She learned that she knew much more than she thought she did, which we know happens to young people. For the first time ever, she passed an assessment the first time she took one after working with staff. That never happened to her. It was also the first time she's seen her name on a merit board for progress. That had never happened to her. At one point, while she was enrolled at Chancery, life happened, some decision struggles, she stopped going to school. She dropped out again while there. And the coach in the transition planning department would not stop, reaching out to her, kept chipping away. And so finally she admitted it and she said, I was just annoyed by him, Ms. Candace, so I came back. And when she came back, he said, thank goodness I've been waiting for you. Now let's get that diploma. Let's get back at it. And she did. And she went on to be successful in many amazing ways. And it changed her life. And she changed my life. So the thing that ignites me about the opportunity to come to Polk County is I love the county that I live in. I believe in the education in this county. And I believe that this is a great partnership that we can do more to ignite these young folks that just need a little bit different connection to be successful and to believe in themselves, because we're amplifying their sparkle. They have this talent and we know it, but we need them to know it, and we need them to boost these skills and get them back in the community and do great things. We don't want them leaving here to go do great things. Do great things in Polk County.
Questions? Ms. Fields and Ms. Moore. Excuse me.
Okay, I think you answered, good presentation, and Ms. Candace, thank you for your passion.
Oh, thank you.
I think you answered one of my questions. Originally, when I read your executive summary, it appeared that you all were a standalone school, but I believe you are part of the Accelerated Learning Solutions company.
ALS would be the management company.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, because in your application, you said that you operated solo, so I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding that. And then my other question is, what distinguishes you from New Beginnings? When I read your application, the summary, a lot of the things that you guys said that you would be doing, New Beginnings is actually doing that. So I wanted to know how would your school differ from from New Beginnings. And then the other question I have, and you might not be able to answer, it might need to be answered by staff, and maybe not today, is under the district needs, you said that there were 914 non-graduates from classes of 2017, 2018, and 2019. I'd be interested in knowing were any of those students caught by New Beginnings. I don't know. I don't know how you would track that.
Well, I think we can look at that, Ms. Fields, because I had a question also. The 914, was that a group of cohorts that we later came back and they had a summer completion? I don't know if you looked at it that way, or if you, okay, you did not, okay.
Just non-graduates didn't graduate on time.
On time, so they could have,
Behind.
right, they could have a summer completion.
Correct.
Okay, okay. I just.
So can you guys answer, thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Jackie.
Mhm.
Can you guys answer, please, if you can, what distinguishes you from New Beginnings?
Okay.
One of there's multiple areas, and any specific data I can always defer to a member of our management team, which is Angela. But one of the things that distinguishes us is with this particular program, Ms. Fields, this operating model has been replicated in many areas and has had a high critical area of success with this population. And that's not to say New Beginnings has not, but our numbers are consistently high. They have been achieving in this program, and consistent enrollments and successful graduations. So one of the things that we know in the population is that sometimes young people get really excited for something and then those numbers drop off, and it's hard to keep them engaged in this type of program. This is where they feel the most efficient, which is where you struggle the most, which is what you don't want to face sometimes. In this particular model, the engagement and the instruction is definitely more blended than the model that I have seen. And with that, it yields more success and more empowerment from the student body. And that is one area that I can say that I've seen for myself.
So you've been to New Beginnings and you've seen?
I have.
Okay.
I have, yes ma'am. Very familiar. Yeah.
Well, I know, when I was reading through it, and not to say that
No,
this
it's a
isn't
good question.
anything that would be beyond New Beginnings, when you all talked about getting students that you know might be at the crossroad of dropping out and getting the schools to work with you all, placing them there. I know that New Beginnings do that. So
Yes, they do.
Yeah, and
They
they do
do.
it well.
The other part that I don't know about New Beginnings, and I'll be very honest about that, I do not know if they have licensed crisis intervention staff full-time. Years ago, when I was partnering with them, they did not have that. I don't know, they may have had that now. And that's very critical to the population that we serve, because we're dealing with more than academic deficiencies. We're dealing with a lot of social and personal struggles that are making the difference in somebody being successful or not. And that is something that I have seen the absolute difference in the ALS model for myself. Like just working with the population and then partnering with people and staff in that area and watching the difference in, yes, academically I might be able to help you pull this up, but if we don't address the other critical needs that are happening, you're right back in this same cycle, and it's trying to break that at its core level as best as we can. It's really, that's why I tried to call it that community model, because that's what I see it as and that's what I've witnessed it as. And that's why I'm being really honest, because I have had exposure to New Beginnings, and that's not something with New Beginnings I ever was able to see. I didn't see that offered. And like I said, it could be offered now.
And I don't know that it is. I just know over the last year, there have been a lot of things that have had to be put in place.
Sure.
Because of state requirements. And that might be one of the things that they now have.
Yeah, maybe.
But one of the things that I would say, great presentation. My belief is that charter schools should feel the need of the students when there is a need. And I don't understand, and I'm sure that you guys can maybe explain it later, why you would be going to Lakeland when New Beginnings is already in Lakeland. And if there's other areas of the county, other pockets of the county that could benefit from this school rather than going directly to the Lakeland community. But again, you can answer that maybe at a later time, because I know that we are out of time probably, and other people might have questions as well.
Well, we had some key target reasons, and we will answer it later, but what I will say is we're also open completely to listening to the school board voice on that. The idea is to bring it to Polk County and to address the need. So
Thank you.
there's definite flexibility there for certain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller?
I appreciate you being passionate about a group of students that often are not first on the list for people to be passionate about.
Amen.
My question is, and this is a district question, Superintendent might, how many, I affectionately refer to them as drop back in, but the programs, because that number that you stated, we have 2 adult schools that do a lot of work, and we have several Fresh Start, we have several programs already catching students. So I don't know how many we have across the district already doing this. Does anybody, do you know that, how many programs Polk County already has implemented that kind of do something very similar?
Well, you do have, you have New Beginnings that's out there, that's the charter, but you do have, Travis, what they drop out, they go into Travis
Right.
and into Ridge Tech up there. And I know you're looking at those numbers, and that's why I was curious about the numbers, because with that group, how many of those kids are now completers
Right.
in that? I think that's what we have to really break down, the kids that are completing, because we complete all the way through summer. So when we're looking at that portion of how many of them are completers, I also, when I looked at their application, I noticed, I think you all go to 21 and you split time. And that was one of my questions of how are you targeting kids and enrolling kids? Is it gonna be those kids that, you know, are not in a Travis, in a Rich Tech, but that's the other option? Because I don't know, I don't think New Beginnings split time such as what they were offering.
And I know
But we
working
do have other programs that are very similar to that,
That's-
yes, we do.
That was my concern, because we like to see charter doing things that we are not doing or not able to do. And working closely with New Beginnings and what they're doing in the multiple campuses, the conversation is how do we get kids earlier so they're not dropping out.
Right.
And that's the continued conversation we're having with that charter. I was also questioning the numbers of how many that we're catching in the programs we currently have to get a true number of how many that were truly slipping through the cracks, and I don't know that we have that.
That was my Ms. Fortney, then Mr. Townsend.
I had the same questions as Ms. Fields, especially about New Beginnings and the numbers. I did the math real quick, you know, seemed like an awful high number to me. I'm more concerned with the management company. Can you explain a little bit more about ALS? I pulled them up on Google, and it reminds me of, I don't know. Can you give me the business model of why you did ALS and just before I... And I also need to know what the graduation rate is for ALS out of these kids.
The graduation rate over the past 5 years, we've graduated over 5,000 students that have their college diploma, standard college diploma, or high school diploma.
What percentage, I was curious, because...
Annual enrollment, 30%. Total annual enrollment.
30%.
So keep in mind that the federal uniform rate doesn't work for a model like this, as you know, because what that's counting is students who have graduated within their 4-year cohort. The average student enrolling at an ALS school is typically almost 18 years old with less than half of their high school credits. So this is a student that should have already graduated or is so far behind that they're not gonna make it on time.
I'm familiar with those kids.
Yeah. As Mike mentioned, in the last 5 years, 15 schools here in Florida, we've graduated close to 5,000 students. That is approximately 30% of our average daily enrollment. And we've got a stability rate of 80%. So, you know, this is a student that we keep students till they're 21. So a student comes to it at 18, no, it's not gonna happen overnight. These are students also on average, we skills test every student when they come in. We're not gonna say, okay, well, you know, you're in 11th grade, jump back into 11th grade. We're gonna figure out where are your skill gaps. Many of these students, as you can imagine, have been to, you know, it's not uncommon to see a student who's been to between 5 and 8 different schools in their academic setting. Of course, they've got skill gaps. Life has gotten in the way. So we're going to test those skills when we start, and then we're going to build that individualized program to fill in those basic skills. Average student across the state in our schools is coming to us performing at the 4th grade level in reading and the 5th grade level in math. A great question in terms of outcomes. So of our 15 schools last year, all 15 earned the highest state accountability rating of a commendable. If you're familiar with the alternative school improvement rating model, that's the highest rating you can get. 100% of our schools as compared to just 20% of alternative schools in the state of Florida. 74% of our students made a full year of growth in reading. Making our students functionally literate is a key priority. Literacy is a key priority. More than half of our students improved by 2 grade skill levels. Our schools performed in the highest quartile across the state in math gains for alternative schools in the state. We were also one of the first programs to get what they call district level accreditation, which I know you're very familiar with SACS. And so all of our schools are fully accredited. From the moment that this school would open, this is an accredited diploma. That's important because we want our students to know that this diploma is as valuable to you as any of your, your traditional high schools that you may have come from. Also important to recognize when we're thinking about things like graduation rate, as a dropout prevention and recovery program, there are many students that are going to come to us that this is just where they need to be. They're too far behind. They need the flexibility. 40% of our students indicated so far this year have indicated to us that they are the primary caregiver for a child, their own child or a sibling. And we wonder why, that in at 7 and out at 2 just isn't going to work for them. 47% of our students indicated to us that they are working a full-time or part-time job. And this isn't gas money. They're supporting themselves and their family. Homelessness. Candace talked about our wraparound social services. This is a big differentiator. I've never been in a new beginning school, but one thing that we hear over and over again from people who visit our schools when they're looking at different models for dropout prevention is they really commend the emphasis that we put on those wraparound social services. I'm the president of the organization, a former principal, former teacher in our model, and I have a background in clinical social work. This is a core component of our model. If we don't help those students navigate those issues, it doesn't matter how good we are at teaching algebra or English. So that's a really important part of our model. We've got licensed clinical social workers. You mentioned Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. When all of these new requirements came into play, quite frankly, we just turned over our normal plan. This is what we do. It's an important component of our model. So that's a little bit about our outcomes. We also track our students' post-secondary status. Candace talked about what comes next. It's not just a here's your diploma, good luck, we'll see you later. We follow these students long term, and we have data to show you this is how our students are performing, this is what they're doing. And when they're not doing anything, which is a very small percentage of them, which we're proud of, but when they're not, we're re-engaging them. You spend 2 hours on any of our campus and you're gonna meet alumni that are coming back, re-engaging, full-time career coaches on all of our campus. We use the term career coach, but they're transition specialists. We don't let our students walk across that stage until they have a plan. Candace is an example of somebody who has played a role in past in making sure that partnership is there. We're working with workforce. We're working with, in Orange County, for example, we've got 60 different community agencies that we're partnered with, and that's consistent across all the districts. It's what we would want to do here as well.
Every time I see-
Oh, were you done, sir?
Well, I every time I see a educational management company, the hair on the back of my neck stands up because of, faltering, taking money and then not performing, etc. So
Being
I just
honest.
want to put that out there.
And we have some history here in Polk County with that. I think the I can't remember what the name of the school was, maybe 10 years ago that in Lakeland went under.
Yes.
It was, and then we've had the Acceleration Academy issue. So I mean, there's I think an inherent skepticism. I wanted to that point. I mean, you guys, your ALS, and then there's, you had a school in Jacksonville that went under in 2015. Is that right? Murray Hill High.
Murray Hill. So we didn't go under. Essentially, we had 3 schools there. The support for dropout prevention, credit recovery in that area had grown. The need wasn't there, and so the board made the decision to focus their efforts on 2 campuses versus the one. So that school closed. The students were absorbed into the other 2 campuses or in a district-run program that they had some other programs internally that they were operating.
But it was a question of you had gotten overextended, I guess, in terms of I think you had too many schools for the market.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and forgive me on this if I missed it in the application, but I noticed you guys are gonna locate in downtown Lakeland near the, I guess, the bus terminal, is that correct? That's the,
Yeah, we're gonna look as close as possible, close to transit between those 5 schools that we've identified.
okay,
So
yeah, well, I mean,
locations
yeah,
on-
okay.
So, yeah, but so in that area, close to Citrus Connection.
And you're looking to rent a facility, I guess, right, not build? You're gonna, do you have one in mind yet?
We don't yet. The other point I think to make there, and I've heard about other programs, and we do recognize that you have both internal programs and you have New Beginnings and other charter programs. When we looked at that area in terms of fundamentals, and when we spoke to our board, it did appear the general area that we were targeting is still, I think it was a good 9 miles from the closest New Beginnings site, so it just appeared to be an area that had a need. That said, if we missed something or if that's not accurate, we will be wherever you believe we should be.
There's a New Beginnings campus in downtown Lakeland, or just off of it. It's by the RP funding center, basically, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's like a half a mile from where you guys are talking about. Okay. And just on the number again, forgive me if I missed this in the application, but like, you're not envisioning having 914 kids in your program. That's your target audience for. I mean, what is 200 about where you would be? It's like that's where the one in Jacksonville was. What's the number you envision?
So about 240 or 245 is the goal of START. The 5-year plan is to be 500 students.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
I'm just back to this management thing. What percent of money do they, I mean, because I know we have to pay a lot for, when we're forced to hire management companies for our turnaround schools. What kind of figure, did I miss that? Was it in a little tiny addition? Like, what percentage does that company get, I guess is my general question, out of the budget?
Right, so it'd be a 97-3 split.
97.3?
3%. 97% would go to the management company, so they're making the initial investment for the build out, staffing, all those costs. The board receives 3%.
That's every 5 years, that's every year for 5 years?
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Marlowe, did you have any closing remarks?
Yep, I just was gonna thank you all for your time. I know we exceeded our agenda item, and I apologize for that. But we will be back
That's on
in
us.
April. I know.
That's on us.
We will be back in April for information from the charter review team. We have our first meeting tomorrow. We have another meeting in March, and then we will follow up at the work session and board meeting in April with the information from our findings from our team.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excuse.
Are we gonna get answers to some of the questions that we wanted to know that
Yes.
relates to those
I believe.
914 students?
Yes, I'm sorry, of
The student.
the 914 students, and how many of those were picked up by New Beginnings?
By us?
Sorry.
Because they could be completers to the summer.
They could, we can pull that information, I will put in a data request, and we can begin retrieving some of that information.
Okay.
Then if you can also find out if New Beginnings has the mental health piece?
I
can
so, yes.
Okay.
They are this year electing, as in last year, they elected to do their own mental health plan under the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. So they would have their own resources for all that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is 2:00. We're gonna take a 10-minute break, which I know is gonna be probably 15. So at 2:15, we will be starting. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Yes, and board members for the city, we have guests with us today, so what we're gonna do is have the elite program come next, then Kelly, and then we'll have the job description right after Kelly. So we're gonna have John Miller, Steve Cochran, and we have our guests, and they will introduce them for you all and present the LEAP program.
Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here today with John Miller and our special guest today, Dr. Lee Thomas, the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Polk State College, and Dr. Patty Linder, the Director of Teacher Bachelor Preparation. We're here today to talk about the ELITE program. ELITE stands for Establishing Leaders in Teacher Education. It's a program designed to accelerate student learning by attracting students with an interest in education and creating a pathway for them through high school, including dual enrollment and on-site college classes, to earn an AA, which they will matriculate after that to Polk State College to complete a 2-year teacher preparation program and hopefully be ready for employment in Polk County Public Schools. This program benefits students and parents by cutting the cost of a college education, and it benefits the district by deepening the pool of locally grown applicants. Mr. Miller was here at the program's inception, which started almost 3 years ago, the planning for this program, and he's going to let you know how we developed it and how it works.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your agenda. I know you guys do a lot for kids every day and you deal with a lot, so thank you. So this is an ambitious goal when we started with ELITE to identify students early and to give them an opportunity to work toward earning teacher certification while doing dual enrollment with the opportunity of trying to earn their AA degree, one of those audacious goals. So just a quick history about my involvement. I was approached in December a couple years ago because of my work with dual enrollment on looking at a way where we could get students into an academy that deals with teaching, education, early childhood, and get them on the path to taking some dual enrollment courses, so they have to meet some eligibility requirements such as GPA and PERT scores. So in February of 2018, about this time 2 years ago, we met with Polk State and began to talk about plans and ways that we could move forward with this. So between February and the summer, lots of conversation in the weeds with specific courses and credentialing teachers and that type of thing, which led us to, in the summer, a year and a half ago, that we coined the term ELITE, the acronym. We've identified the 3 schools that have teacher education or early childhood programs. They're Bartow, Haines City, and Ridge Community. And then we began to define what the initial requirements were for the kids, the students, who were going to enter high school. So we had a media event, the photograph you saw on the last slide when Dr. Falconetti and Ms. Bird were at one of the schools to initiate that process. So the requirements for students beginning in 9th grade, we have to start that early if we want to get them on a trajectory towards getting an associate's degree. They need to be maintain a high GPA, and they need to have success on the reading and writing portions of the PERT prior to 10th grade, which is very early for students to be doing the PERT traditionally. So in 9th grade, the students must be in one of these academy courses, either the Intro to the Teaching Profession or the Early Childhood Education. That's how we kind of identify the kids in 9th grade who are potential candidates to move into this path. And then what makes this ambitious is that in 10th and 11th grade, as part of their schedule, once they successfully complete that course as a 9th grader, and are successful on the PERT and maintaining a high GPA, that they would roll into taking 2 dual enrollment classes per semester. They need about 60 credits, about 3 credits per college course, about 20 college classes in their 3 years So as part of getting them their regular requirements for high school, they would have these dual enrollment courses. They would take 2 each semester in the fall and spring of their 10th grade year, and then also take 3 in their 11th grade year. So they would still be a part-time dual enrollment student at our high schools. Okay, and then the path that we developed last summer, a year and a half ago, that they would matriculate to Polk State College and would be taking 15 credits per semester as a 12th grader in order to meet the 60 credits that they need to earn their AA degree. About what we did last year.
Well, last year, during the school showcase, we had to set up a special area for attracting 8th grade students and parents into generating interest in applying for the program. This year, or in January of last year, the first group of 9th graders were identified out of the 3 schools that are participating. A total of 40 students were in our initial group. We recognize this as one of the important things is having a signing day. The signing day acted as a moment to note the students' commitment to the program, and it was also a celebration of their accomplishment for being admitted into the program. They had to meet the standards before they got in. You can see the superintendent participated in a number of those events.
And these were 9th graders last year.
All right, so that current group this year, we're still engaging them by taking them out to the Polk State campus, getting them acclimated, letting them know what their next steps are going to be. We've encouraged each of the programs to take the students out and get them engaged with Polk State. One of the things that John and I have worked on is the program design was effective, but we've decided that we'd make some adjustments to broaden the base and so that we could include more students into the program. We rolled that out at the school showcase this year. John's going to talk about some of the changes that we made.
So we did, in talking with the teachers themselves of the academies and the schools and the students, to see what, because they're 14 years old, they haven't figured out what they're going to do in life yet. I don't know that I've figured out what I'm going to do in life. But things change from one week to the next and what their concerns are. So in meeting with them and taking into account the whole persons, we decided that we needed to make an addition, create a second pathway, a little pivot for us to give some students more opportunities, some more time for maturity to sit in. Doing that, if we create a second path, which we're terming as the pathway accelerated, so we now have the pathway AA and the pathway accelerated, that allows for students to, in between their 9th and 10th grade year, maybe as an 8th grader, 13, 14-year-old, they didn't quite understand that they could apply or what it was, and they didn't sign up to go into that academy or whatever. But in 9th grade, they heard their friends talking about it, and they thought, maybe I would want to do that. So in 10th grade, it gives them the opportunity to enter the program. Now, in terms of the dual enrollment, the AA piece, there is not enough time to accumulate that. However, they can knock out a whole year of college coursework, and they could essentially be finished with their college work in 3 years instead of 4. So the very ambitious goal, if you look on your left there, the pathway AA, would have students taking dual enrollment classes in their 10th and 11th grade year, and then for their 12th grade year, they would be doing early admission.
Matt, I just want to say, I think that you'll find that on the additional sheet that we added, the one-pager, that'll be on the back.
So this was a change based on feedback that we've received from students and parents and teachers at at the schools. Kids had concerns about, I wanna stay in FFA, or I still wanna be with my teacher because I love her, and, you know, just gonna, if I have to do early admission, I have to leave. So we wanna still offer this pathway for our students, the Pathway AA, because we do have a number of students at one of our sites who've already qualified, and the counselors and admin are working with those kids. But we do understand that there are students who, at age 14 or 15, the maturity is changing to allow the opportunity for entry in 10th grade. So the current expectations for students, it is still ambitious that they have to maintain good grades. They have to have a C in every course, and part of that is leading in our partnership with Polk State, and I do appreciate them being with us today and all the dialogues I've had. But they have to maintain good grades, but they can apply as 9th or 10th grade. And they must also meet the requirements for dual enrollment to participate in those courses.
I did want to add about the PERT score. We had some students that had an issue with meeting the PERT score, so extending this year out gives them an opportunity to meet the PERT score. And also, we're looking at adding some PERT tutorials so that we can assist the students in meeting that PERT score.
My next to last slide here. So we have currently, I know what that is, we have our group of 9th graders that we've identified. So we've got a few 10th graders, you saw the picture before. Now we have at least 60 students who are eligible. We're kind of sorting and filtering through some spreadsheets. So that has increased partly because of the efforts that we've had at the school showcase events. We do communicate with students and schools. It's very important for the administrators at the school and the school counselors that we appreciate. And certainly the teachers of those academies do a great job. We are working closely with Polk State. We are planning to have some additional signing days. All right, and this is you with the next to last slide.
Oh, good.
The last slide.
Some of our future plans include, we've worked with Ms. Portres. To develop a job for the teachers while they're in their college program. A lot of detail will have to be worked out on that. We'd like to create a special class of para or assistant so that they could not only earn a paycheck but also learn while they're in the classroom. We're looking at possible financial reimbursement for students completing the bachelor program at Polk State, and the possibility of earning volunteer hours doing an internship over the summer at our summer school programs. Hook up our future teachers with some of our best teachers, and hopefully we will get them experience that they'll be able to use when they're in the classroom. I did want to say that you know, we feel very good about where the program is right now. We're still very early in. We've got 1 year under our belt, and we've got the first group on track for one of those two pathways. We've got great cooperation at the schools. Well, let me start with first, we have great students involved in the program, as always. We have great cooperation at the schools. The teachers are enthusiastic about the program, and we have a great partnership with Polk State College. So we're on the track to being successful and providing a good opportunity for our students.
And, yeah, I appreciate that, and I echo, it's so neat to me when we went to the signing days, and I get to talk to some of the kids afterwards to just remember they are 14. It's okay.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
But they're all female, all of the ones that are in the 10th grade group, first 40. But they're sweet kids.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Ms. Fortney?
Oh, yeah, your future plan slide answered everything I was gonna ask about the paras, and all that stuff, and as a Eagle myself, thank you very much. It wasn't called Polk State though. But I learned a lot there, really.
Ms. Reynolds, then Ms. Fields, I'm sorry.
I have a few. So for the bachelor's portion, currently students are paying for that on their own, or is that correct?
Currently, the
Okay.
students are only 10th graders.
Right. So is that,
We're projecting out.
are we thinking before they get to their first year in that bachelor's program that we'll have something in place to reimburse them? I'm saying
The
nod.
college is
Okay.
working on that. Dr. Falconetti is working closely with the director of our foundation, and she's already begun the marketing for an education scholarship program.
And is that something that we're looking at tying to committing to teach in the district for
Yes.
a certain number of
So-
years, or, okay?
So I can tell you that when this idea came about, of course, I chased John Miller down and said, we have to make this happen. And then after talking to Dr. Falconetti, that was the one commitment, was once they go over to Polk State College, they were gonna try to make sure that they could leave there debt-free. That was one of the goals. We're gonna take care of the first two, and they're gonna try to take care of the second two. And then they have to come back to us, because the whole initiative was, we hear the teacher shortage issue, but what are we doing about it? And we're gonna try to grow our own right here. And if the commitment will be, once they get to a point in the college, we'll have them sign a contract with us. That's gonna be a guarantee back into Polk County Public Schools.
As far as internship requirements, what, I know for UF it was your sophomore year, you did a one-on-one internship where you were partnered with one student doing a tutoring. Their junior year they were with a small group, their senior year they were in a classroom. What is the partnership, what are the internship opportunities, and are we making sure that those students are interning in our public schools?
Absolutely. Well, this is one of the beautiful things about our partnership is that we are also a public institution.
Right.
And we only serve Polk County, so none of our future teachers in our programs ever have a field study or field experience or an internship outside of Polk County. All of that takes place here. And when they enter our program, the bachelor program, they're actually juniors in college.
Right.
And so in those first few semesters, they have almost 300 hours of in-field experiences that they get before the final internship. So we do 10 weeks, one full day. We don't do an hour here or there.
Right.
We want you to show up when the teachers get there and spend the entire day with that assigned placement for 10 weeks, one day a week. And that happens over 3 semesters, and then the final internship, of course, is full-time placement. For our minimum is 12 weeks. Occasionally, we will have a superstar that might have an opportunity to take the position a little sooner, but 12 weeks is our target. Does that answer?
Yes, it does. For the Pulse, is there anything that their senior year we could use these students to maybe, I know PEP in Winter Haven has the Ready, Set, Read program, that we could use these students to tutor some of our elementary school students or things like that, or?
I believe the team was brainstorming some ideas in part of their future plans.
Gotcha. Okay.
They're actually, the shell was created, and now the team is actually talking to the teachers and talking with the college. They're seeing other opportunities that are able to come up now, and that's what they're addressing. How can we really bring them in early? What can they be doing? A lot more within our school system, making sure we really get them acclimated into the classroom as soon as we can, as well as while they're going over to the college.
Are their junior and senior year, and I know you said junior year they have one day that they're in the classroom, do their classes allow that they could become a sub with Kelly Services and
We have many
do that
students
throughout?
who
And
do
are we encouraging them to do that, I guess, too, would be my question.
Absolutely. Again, in-field practice is crucial, and if it comes through subbing, or if there's some other way that they can be involved volunteering at school in addition, that's great. If our full-time daytime students, if DOB students go that route, they have classes 2 days a week. Then they have one of the third days becomes their field study day, and then they still have a day that they can sub.
Okay.
So we work with that. We also have a special program if they have a para position, that on those 10 days, we honor the fact that they're 5 days in the school with the para, and so we work within their work setting to help them do reflections and visit other classrooms at that school without having to go to another placement for all 10 weeks.
Can I follow up on that, sir?
Yes.
Superintendent Bird? I think that's great because I know even when I was in college moving from PCC to USF, we did not get in the classroom until like, I think I was senior.
It's the end.
And people drop like flies. They're like, oh my God, what have I done? I don't want to be here. You know, kind of thing. So the earlier they get their feet wet, awesome, yeah.
Thank you.
It's good.
Ms. Fields and Ms. Miller?
Is this a model program that we're doing? Are we the only district that has this program in place, Ms. Miller?
Other districts have asked.
That's
Yes, they
great.
have.
That's a very great, idea. And I think you answered about the financial reimbursement. I was interested in how that would look. And if we were gonna be needing to pursue sponsors to help with that, but I think that was answered. And then I guess
It's a work in progress.
Before you leave today.
I'll put it all in. And then the other question is, the substitute piece, what is the age requirement for that? Would it be 18 or older or what?
18.
Okay, all right. Just wanna make sure.
Certainly we look at, a substitute in elementary school versus the situation where the substitute is targeting elementary schools.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Miller, then back to Ms. Reynolds.
I told you I had a lot of questions.
No, I appreciate this. This is a great program, and in the community, it's been well received. I would like it in one of my high schools, but I have 3, you can choose. But my question is, the level of support that's provided from the staff at Polk State, I want to make sure that we are picking up that support because they're very young. That's the only community feedback that I've heard is you're turning really young people into the classroom, which is a great opportunity for them, especially because of the cost. But the other side of that is, are we supporting them at their age and skill level to go into a classroom? Because that's kind of going to be both sides. Because as their students, I know the professors are very supportive. But are we matching them with peer mentors and to keep that support level? That would be my concern.
I think we've had conversations about that and also about having a staff person somewhere, whether that's here or Polk State, who's kind of like their coach or their counselor through the program.
Clinical educator.
So it's still in the discussion phase.
We've learned a lot from students who currently graduate from high school with an AA degree, whether it's our collegiate program or it's your high schools, and come into our bachelor program. So we do have a few young ones who've already been there, helping us learn what kind of supports they need.
Thank you.
Ms. Reynolds, then Mr. Townsend.
As far as the curriculum or the pathways for getting it, how prescriptive are these in the sense that if they take an AP class or a Cambridge class or things like that, can they use those to replace this? And do we have something that shows these are all of the things that meet the humanities requirement? These are...
Yes. If you can read that small print.
It's at the bottom.
It's at the bottom.
Okay. So to address your first question with the ACE or the AP classes, initially as we built this out, and we're making pivots as we go, we're looking at, to earn an AA degree, you need to have 60 college credits, essentially 20 courses. So it's built right now on the model of getting those 20 college dual enrollment credits. We haven't had a situation yet with, okay, this student takes ACE biology, can that count for BSc 1181 or something like that? I would think that that's something, in talking with the curriculum people at Polk State, could have opportunities to have some reciprocity with courses that a math class that Ms. Irvin will teach may be able to of the same kind of caliber as a course. But right now it is built on just the dual enrollment class.
Yeah, I would love to see us move towards, I got to UF and realized some of the classes that I took at Polk State that I was assured would be great classes, I didn't really need. So just making sure that if they're, if they took human geography as a freshman and they passed that test, that if it meets any of these things, that they're not being told they have to take another biology class if they don't need it. And I think going kind of along with that, are they allowed to do summer classes?
Yes.
And then that way they can still be involved if they want to do
Yeah,
drama
and
or
we-
ITV or some of those
We
things.
purposely didn't include summer in the way the slide looks, because we didn't want people to think it was mandatory.
Okay, but they
students, if
can.
they qualify, they could do that, yes.
My very last question, I promise, is are we looking at any other schools to put this to? I know the Northeast is fairly well covered. I'm not trying to say that it has to be Winter Haven. I know you have 3, but the Northeast is well covered, and then we have Bartow here. Are we looking at any other
We have
areas?
discussed, we've discussed among ourselves, we'd have to work that out with Polk State.
Part of the challenge, or the opportunity, that Polk State provides us with an instructor if
Gotcha.
there's a certain class that a school may not teach, so at those schools that we're using. We already have people who teach and are credentialed in SLS 1101 or other classes, but for this partnership to work, the students need to be taking those classes in 10th and 11th grade. So if that campus doesn't have a credentialed person, Polk State is, that's part of why we need a partnership, to have guarantee that that course could be offered. So if as we expand to more schools, that means we would need to have more credentialed people.
And are most of these classes available online, or any of them?
I would
know I
say
took 1101.
more of them are available. I know that there's always a concern with students that young taking an online class. So that's what we would prefer, to have a model where
Right.
face-to-face, but many of those classes are available.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Townsend, and back to Ms. Miller.
And forgive me, I had to step out at the beginning of this, so if this is repetitive, I apologize. But how many, are we at a point where we've had kids go to a certain point yet? What's the volume currently?
10th grade right now, we have 5 students on the AA track and 35 on the accelerated track.
Okay. We haven't gotten anybody yet to, like it's too early to bid into Polk State, right? It says, yes, it starts with us, right. Yeah, I would just say the ultimate success of this will be tracked 5 years out, 10 years out, hopefully, if they're still here. And I mean, everybody knows that, but I hope that's what we'll do. And to Ms. Miller's point about the maturity, I think if we're putting, the way I've read this in the past, I mean, we're putting 20-year-olds in theory into the classroom, and that's a little different than a 23-year-old who's gone through a full 4-year experience of college, of living off on their own, I'm less concerned about them being supported in the program than I am when they come into the classroom as very, very, very young adults, and making sure we're putting them in appropriate places. And do we have any thoughts about that? Well, I mean, we're not there yet, but do we have any thoughts about that?
I know that we've talked about targeting elementary schools, because the gap between a high school senior and not very many years.
No, that'd be a dangerous thing.
And also with the second pathway, it allows for them, takes 3 years to get through, because they don't express an interest until they're between their 9th and 10th grade year. So they're 21 instead of 20. But yes, there's discussions about the age.
And we're hoping to get them plenty of classroom experience time, be that through their natural curriculum or working for us additionally to help fund their going through school. Hopefully they will continue to be connected with the school system all the way through until they graduate.
And this is a silly idea, but I mean, what about building a parenting class into, I think, obviously you have fresh out of college people who come in at 23, 20, 24, but the idea of thinking through some of what's involved in parenting, which is some of the same things that are involved in managing kids. I wonder if there's not a little fragment of program that's already being used somewhere that we could plug into this. Just a thing to think about.
Ms. Miller?
Having different schools do our dual enrollment programs at the high schools, I mean, is the barrier to putting in another high schools because Polk State's not their dual enrollment provider?
The
That's
only
another reason
school-
we should be
well,
doing more dual enrollment in Polk State.
The only school that comes to mind, and that could be an issue, would be Lake Gibson, as they do have an association with another college. But,
Center Rock does too.
yeah. But it's more, it's not necessarily about wanting to expand the program, it's limited resources. And also, we don't want to oversaturate, our goal when we build this out is to possibly put 100 kids into an education program a year. We don't really want to oversaturate Polk State with education students that, they will need to continue to have staff to serve. So we're not opposed to, and we've talked about expanding out, but it really needs to be strategic.
And I would add, I would say we need to see this first cohort through first, because there's things, as you see, we're building out from just this right now on both sides of it. And I think we need to see that through first before we say we're gonna go out and expand, because you can always, like you said, oversaturate, and then we don't produce what we're actually going after on either end. So I think we see that, and then we see, is it that we need to go for a particular area, particular type, student that we're looking for? What is it that Polk State can offer, cannot offer? And so my goal is to see this first cohort get in, and then let's work through that at that point. Because there may be courses we may have to add in to shore them up even more before we send them back over to us to employ. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all. Okay. And the next item we have coming is Kelly Services, and Ms. Porteous also has the job description, so after they complete Kelly Services, she will bring the job description at that point.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I also have Mr. Matt Tidwell here with me from Kelly Services to answer some questions. I have a number of handouts for you as well, so.
Okay.
So take one and pass it down. Ask the teacher or me. There's 4 handouts.
Here you go.
Oh, another one? I appreciate all these handouts. I would have liked this earlier, so I could have reviewed it.
Oh, I'm sorry, that request, I don't recall receiving that request, but I'll give it to you in email if you'd like.
Just in general, I think
Yeah, I
staff,
think
we
in
need stuff
general,
early.
we've been trying to ask for stuff like this to be,
So we can look at it.
so we can review it a little bit ahead of time.
Certainly, well, the contract was provided, a part of what.
Right.
we
Yes,
have.
I have the
The
contract.
contract was
I have that.
provided a while ago.
Mhm.
And that's a part of the packet that you received. So essentially, I just wanted to review, I think based on Mrs. Cunningham's request, there was a question about Kelly Services, and so we wanted to review that overall. Another item that you have before you, okay?
Yeah, and let me just, this is part of our discussion items that we had requested, and this item was on the list because of the comments that we heard the night of the board meeting that we held at Bartow High School. and we had teachers and employees come and speak to us. Several of them made comments regarding Kelly's services in general, and I thought, the best way to discuss it openly is to kind of hear where we are, what has their rates been as far as filling positions, contracts, just kind of the whole 9 yards. So that's kind of why, when you say it was my request, it was really the request of our employees that I heard that night, and then put it on the list, and Ms. Bird thought this meeting would be most appropriate to discuss it. So I thank you for this, because I think it's important. I really do, yes.
So I think if I were to address that night, I wasn't here, but from watching the tape, I noticed that someone said something about a 90% fill rate in the contract. And so Mrs. Winchester was very gracious in providing that contract to you beforehand. I think you all received that.
We did.
If I'm not mistaken, maybe about a month or so ago, excuse me.
Shortly after the meeting, yes.
And so, if you'll notice, there is no fill rate percentage there.
Sure.
So I'm not sure where that came from
Doesn't matter.
generally, but that is not a contractual provision within the contract. I think Mrs. Fortney, yes ma'am.
I had a super sleuth get on that.
Sorry?
A super sleuth about that
Okay.
because it is not in the contract. But they provided me with 2 ledger links that during those discussions, which was well before us, I
Right.
believe, that was it was promise, according to the discussions of the contract. And I have those 2 articles from the ledger, which I can share with you. I just wanted to bring that out.
Okay, certainly. Thank you for that.
Before you get started,
Yes, ma'am.
is somebody gonna give us a historical perspective on where we were before we started using Kelly services? Does anybody on staff have an knowledge?
Is that part of?
Well, it is kind of
It's
part of
part
it.
of your.
Okay.
It's part of
Make sure we
it.
start from where we began and where we are now.
And I know Mr. is it Tidwell?
Tidwell.
He's in the back as well. If we have questions.
So based on my understanding, the district was managing their own sub-program. And if I recall correctly, the sub-program as managed by the district, there was a fill rate of about 81%. And historically, it had been around the 70s and 80s, Mrs. Fields. So that's why I think Kelly Services appealed to the district as a whole. Mr. Perron, did you wanna?
Yeah, I could probably talk a little about the history. So the fill rate was low, and former superintendent had worked with Kelly Services, and they had a higher fill rate, and subbed that out. And so they came in. They had been talking to the district for quite a number of years, but financially, the finance team said it, would cost more. And that is true. It would cost more because you're gonna fill more and you're gonna have more subs. So that's where the conversation went, and then Kelly came in and presented, and the board did shift to using the outsourcing.
And I will add, in complete transparency, I know Mr. Tidwell sitting in the back, but I believe back then Kelly was the only provider, am I correct, at the time, with those type services?
It's grown a lot since, but back then, at that time, 7 years ago, they were pretty much
The only provider?
Providing this sort of service.
Okay. Okay.
I remember being in the audience for that, and I don't know and that was one of the questions of the community, that there were no bids, there were no other outside companies looking to gain this contract. And that was a community discussion because they were concerned with what we paid.
So if you look at the third slide, entitled Key Measures and Results, I'll start there. Oh, actually, I'll start with the second slide. Matt Tidwell is our client services lead. He's the person that we contact when we have an issue, anytime. And so recently, he did add 2 more people to the Kelly Services staff, or to his staff, to assist us as we need more services. Key measures and results. So this kind of shows a historical analysis. Kelly Services and the district started their partnership in 2014-15. At that time, you'll see it's broken down into 3 areas: teacher, para, CDAT, and clerical. In 2014-15, you'll see that there were total filled absences of 96,000, maybe 100 or so, and unfilled of 4,713. And the percent fill rate at that point was 95%. If you look at 18-19, there were 94,192 total filled absences, and then of the overall absences, there were 13,000, maybe 200 that were unfilled, for a overall percentage fill rate of about 89%. So total last year for the 18-19 school year, we had about 107,000 absences overall, and that's just on the teacher side of it. It seems to be, and talking to Mr. Tidwell for the 19-20 school year, it seems to be that we are trending down for that, and for the 19-20 school year rather than, when we compare it to 18-19. Next slide is the Polk County,
Can I ask a quick clarifying question? This includes positions that aren't filled too, right? Like it's,
Yes,
so it's not a human who's not there, it's everything is.
Everything.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's an amazing spike, sorry, but.
And if you just want to hover there for a moment, you'll see overall, so for 14-15, 96,000 that were filled. Again, 4,700 that were unfilled. In 15-16, 89,000 that were filled, and 5,000 that were unfilled. 16-17, you'll see it trend up, 90,000 that were filled, and then 5,000, maybe 6,000 really, that were unfilled, for a total fill rate of 94%. 17-18, 88,600 that were filled, and then 7,000 that were unfilled. Again, a fill rate of 92%, and then last year, as we discussed, 94,000 that were filled and 13,000 that were unfilled, for an 88% fill rate. And overall, over the past 5 years, there has been a 92% fill rate. That's just with teachers. For the pairs and CDATs, it's a 72% fill rate, and then for the clerical, it's a 96% fill rate.
I'm sorry, Ms. Porteous.
Of course.
I think maybe I'm confused, just to hear that this doesn't include, this is just when the automated system gets called and the job is either filled or not filled. Is
Yes.
that period?
But it includes, okay, yes.
Because then the staff at the school that has unfilled substitutes has to scrounge around and find somebody to cover those classes. That's not including when those classes get covered.
Those are unfilled, right, so if it's.
You see what I'm getting at?
If it's not a substitute assigned by Kelly.
This
then
is
it
Kelly's
would show-
statistics.
Correct.
What puts in and what got filled.
Correct.
That's,
So if
okay.
it's not a substitute assigned by Kelly, then it would show as an unfilled vacancy.
Gotcha.
The class is broken up, or the principal or the administrator does whatever he or she needs to do to cover the class for the day.
We just scramble.
I'm sorry?
We just scramble to do whatever.
Scramble,
Yes.
I'm sorry, yes. Okay. Next slide, Polk County unemployment. So you'll see here, the gray bar that's trending down is the unemployment rate. Okay, there's a lot of information on this slide. In 2012 and 2013 are the yellow bars to the left. And those were the fill rates for 2012 and 2013. And then 2014 through 2019 are the Kelly Services fill rates. You'll see that as the unemployment rate goes down, then our fill rate, as the unemployment rate goes down, then our fill rate tends to trend down as well. It is much harder for us to find qualified staff, particularly when the economy is just doing well. When we are competing with the same amount of talent, or when they are competing with the same amount of talent. And quite honestly, something else that affects this is our pay rate. We pay subs currently $80 an hour, but we pay Kelly.
$80 a day.
I'm sorry, $80 a day.
I was gonna say,
You're subbing when we're all applying? You're subbing, huh?
I thought that seemed very generous.
Yeah.
Like, there's some.
We're gonna have a problem.
Yeah,
we're gonna have a real problem.
All of that's gonna fly. We currently pay them $80 a day, and we pay Kelly $108 a day, $108.80 for that. So overall, you'll see as well, I provided you a list from 14-15 through 19-20. It's another sheet there, and that's the overall budget in terms of what we've paid based on these rates. So Kelly Services did try to increase their rates last year, increase the sub rates to $90 a day. However, they decreased their markup. Unfortunately, though, we decided not to accept that proposal because we had not yet given teachers a raise, and so we didn't want to not give teachers a raise and give subs a raise. We thought that that would be inequitable, essentially. So for that reason, though, once we do finally give teachers a raise, we will likely, if we stick with Kelly, we will try to ask for the $90 a day, and then only to pay them 28% in markup overall. Interestingly, Orange and Hillsborough County are paying the higher rate of $90 a day, and so it's causing us some issues in our fill rate, if I may just be frank. Yes, ma'am.
On this, it has substitute teachers $80 a day, and then co-teacher substitute positions at $90 a day. What is the difference? What's a co-teacher substitute position?
Yes, please.
So co-teach is something that we don't use anymore. It's something that we used a couple of years ago, and it was during FTE week, whenever we really had a high need for substitute teachers. In those cases, we would pay $90 a day to ensure that we had all the classes staffed.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
That's what, just real quick. So, I mean, the decision not to go to 90 was not brought to the board to discuss, correct? And I'll talk about this later, but that's sort of a political question, isn't it? And one that we ought to be in a position to take the heat for if there's something or not, Like, I'm not sure that's the kind of decision as an elected board I'm comfortable just outsourcing to. So that's a thing to think about. If we're having a problem filling those seats, come throw it at us. It's like so. I mean but we'll come back to that.
So if we look at all position data on the next slide, you'll see that we had overall 108,157 filled absences at an 86% fill rate, and that is for the 18-19 school year. That is inclusive of just teachers. Paras were right at about 15,000 overall, and then CDATs and just CDAT paras, were at about 2,000 overall. Clerical were at right under 1,000. So,
You mentioned the markup rate going to 28%, is that correct?
Yes,
So
sir.
is that a reduction from 35% to 28%?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So they would increase the daily rate to $90 and then decrease the markup to $115.
115, okay.
Yes, sir. The year-over-year, the next slide is the year-over-year analysis by position type. So you'll see the orange represents 16-17, the yellow represents 17-18, and the green represents 18-19. So in 16-17, we had 90,425 absences per volume. In 17-18, we had 614, and then in 18-19, we had 94,192. In 16-17, our fill rate was 93.8%. In 17-18, the fill rate was 92%. And then in 18-19, the fill rate was 87.7%. And that is just for teachers alone. Paraprofessionals are the middle column. The paraprofessionals, so again, orange is 16-17, Yellow is 17-18, and green is 18-19. For paraprofessionals for 16-17, there were 10,900 absences. For 17-18, there were 4,960 absences. And for 18-19, there were 12,916 absences. Those fill rates, if you look at the diamond in the middle there, fill rates for paras were 74.9%. In 16-17 and 17-18, it was 79.3%, and then in 18-19, it was 73.5%. It's important.
I don't know, maybe you're gonna get to this, but when you say paraprofessional, that's when the para has gone on the computer and requested the day, sick or personal or whatever, and it's not billed from the computer.
Yes.
Which, are we gonna have any kind of data that when those paras are taken out of their classrooms to fill the teacher position at the school, we would not have that data, would we?
Not unless it's reported by the principal. Mr. Hill, you may want to speak to that. I think as a former principal, most principals did not report that data.
Nobody,
Right. I just wanted to put that out there because doesn't the paraprofessional get a supplement for covering a teacher's class?
Yes.
I just also wanted to put that out there. So they aren't not just doing it like our teachers are out of the kindness of their hearts, but they could be.
They could be, and if they do, then they do receive, I think, $20 additionally per day.
But our teachers are just not getting compensated at all. What happens to that money? I'm just curious. We don't have to pay for the sub. Goes in the general.
Unless we pay to Kelly.
So it goes, rolls back in. So once again, our teachers are performing a money-saving service for us. Is that pretty much it? Okay. I just want to put that out there. Bless their hearts.
For secretary and clerical, on that same slide, you'll notice that in 16-17, we had 502 that were out, 17-18, 500, and in 18-19, we had 901 vacancies or absences per volume by the secretaries. There it was 94.2% for 16-17. In 17-18, it was 94.2% again, and then in 18-19, it was 95.3%. If you turn the page, you'll see the absences broken down by month. I'm sorry, I skipped a page. Let's go back to the year-over-year analysis there for teachers, paras, and CATs. And so this is for all staff in terms of the years. So you'll see there, I think Mrs. Fields asked earlier, what was the fill rate and kind of historically what it was. And so in 12-13, before Kelly took over, it was 81.7%. In 14-15, it was 93%, and 15-16, it was 92.9%. In 16-17, it was 91.4%, and then in 17-18, 89.9%, and in 18-19, it was 85.8%. And that's overall for all of the areas that Kelly touches.
Is there feedback on the decline in fill rate? We have feedback on the decline in fill rate?
Feedback, more specifically.
Because if we've gone down to, what is it, was the last time? 85? From at one point 92? Do we have explanation of why we dropped?
the
So-
economy is part of that.
I was just about to say, so we've talked to Kelly Services about that. We're in constant communication with them about why there is a decline. And it's really twofold, or probably more reasons than that. Frankly, yes, the economy, in terms of people having various or other options, and also the pay. More importantly, though, we are doing a program, and it's called a pilot sub program at a lot of our schools. And so the pilot subs don't necessarily factor into our vacancies. So that's about 70 people that Kelly Services could use to plug a vacancy. However, they are not being used in that way. Meaning I am Tedra, I'm a pilot sub, I report to Tenor Rock High School every day, and so I am just assigned with the flexibility from the principal to assign me wherever he'd like me to be used. And so unfortunately, that person is then not keyed into the system as filling a position. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we've talked about that in the past. That's how it was back when I was subbing a long time ago. You made the relationship with the school. You were there. That was your base school. You could sub other places, but that you kind of got to know your community by adding subs. And I think that's much different than calling in on a computer and trying to find jobs. It just built community at the school. And some of our schools that have a low fill rate, I think that's even more an area that we need to focus on. Who do we find in the community? What are we doing to reach out in the community, or Kelly, or what their marketing budget is? Besides the sticks in the ground and the car rider line, what are we doing to attach our community to our schools for subs? Because I get the economy. I mean, being in real estate, I understand the economy. But I don't think a lot of our subs are going to teach because it's the best thing. Like, I don't think they're choosing, even a lot of them are doing it to move up in their career if they're in between jobs. But to say the economy's better so nobody wants to sub, I don't know if I buy that. A lot of our subs are committed to students. It's what they want to do. They're retired teachers. They're paras looking to be teachers, or in school looking to be teachers. So that I think we needed to target that a little bit closer. I don't know that just because the economy's better, people aren't subbing, because retail would pay them just as well, if not more.
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
Sure. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So it's not just the unemployment rate.
Right.
To Tedder's point, whenever Polk was servicing their substitute teachers, the unemployment rate was at 7.5%. Now it's at 3%. So that really tightens the job market. If you look at talent as a commodity, which it is, it's hard to find talented people who meet the requirements to be a substitute teacher. It's much harder now than it was 5 years ago. The other thing that I would say is on that key measures page, it shows you what our total filled absences were compared to the total requests. The other thing that really makes an impact is the increased volume of requests over that period. So, for instance, if we had the same amount of requests in 2018-2019 as we had in 2017-2018, we actually would have a 98% fill rate for that year.
I would like to hear the benefit of using Kelly over doing pilot subs in all our schools and doing community-based recruitment, like your marketing budget. What are you doing to recruit people to fill these positions as a company?
So that's a good question. So you had mentioned the yard signs. Obviously, we do the yard signs. We do school visits. We also do meet and greets. So whenever we identify a school that has challenges with fill rates, we coordinate among our internal sub pool and try to get folks that have never been to that school before to show up, meet the administration, talk about the school and some of the needs that they have, and hopefully encourage them to take up assignments. We also incentivize those meet and greets, so we pay them to come, to show up to the meet and greet, and then also pay them an incentive to pick up their first assignment at that school. We have licenses for Indeed. So we do Indeed resume searches on a near daily basis to try to identify folks in Polk County who meet the requirements and would be interested in education. We have a strong social media presence. So we're out there on social media doing job postings, participating in different groups on Facebook and LinkedIn. We use Recruitix, which is another tool that aggregates our job postings out to a number of different sources. Those are just some of the different recruiting strategies that we employ. We also partner with the Polk HR team. We participated in virtual job fairs. We were just at a teacher symposium on Friday. We try to get in front of the teachers and ask for referrals. We have referral programs for our substitute teachers and also referral programs for our teachers. So if they refer somebody, back in November, we did an incentive where we would deliver $100 in school supplies for anybody who recruited a substitute teacher for us, and then that sub worked 10 days. Those are just some of the things kind of off the top of my head that we spend every day focusing on trying to get people out. And to your point about retail, I noticed the other day at the Target at Hardin, we had a sign up that said now hiring, starting at $14 an hour. The same holds true for a lot of the fast food locations. And the feedback that we get from a lot of our substitute teachers is, you just don't pay us enough money. we love the kids, we love doing this job, but this isn't a living wage, and I can go to Chick-fil-A and make more money hourly.
And I worry about the quality of subs with that, because I had a parent of a child with a disability call one of the signs just to see, you know, what the requirements were, and it was pretty much show up in clean shoes and you're breathing and you can sub, and that's concerning. So I think building relationships in the community is a much better, you get much better quality substitute teachers from doing it that way than some kind of mass marketing to a quick $85 a day.
Yeah.
Ms. Fortney?
Well, I know, right when, as a classroom teacher, I had people that I could depend on. Most were either former students or former parents that subbed in my room, and it was that, like, they only picked certain people to sub for, etc., that kind of thing. But the bottom line is the reason our teachers are taken off and our paras is because of the negative behaviors and in the classrooms, and also we can't seem to get subs at certain schools because of behavior issues. I myself have written tons of reference letters for former students to be subs, and their response is after about, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, forget it. I don't know how you did it for 30 whatever years. The other thing I want to say is this one slide. That's an average of your on your analysis of all 3 for what, 6 years. So you know, a 91% fill rate, because apparently our secretaries never take off, bless their hearts. They're there all the time. That's still probably a lot better than what we were doing, you know, overall, if you looked at it. But again, I think those pilot subs and that contact, you know, I'm going to say it again, and Ms. Porteous and I talked about it. It is a lot harder to call your principal, say, Mr. Hill, I don't feel well, than it was to punch a button.
Mr. Hill, can you speak to, prior to Kelly Services coming on board, how was the sub pool, what was it like as a former principal, do you remember? It's been so long ago.
Yeah, just yesterday. So it seems to me, and I can't quantify it, but it seems we always ended up trying to find coverage at certain times of the year for sure, and certain days of the week potentially. But you know, we had good experience with Kelly Sub at Auburndale through my 11 years there. Once they came on board, it seemed like it was a little more efficient in terms of the process. So, you know, it's hard to remember back to before, to be honest with you, to quantify it.
Do we have a cost comparison for those 2 times? Like what it was costing us for our schools to fill and to what we're spending now?
I'm sure we can get one for you.
Yeah, we can get it, and again, it's not apples to apples, because you're gonna have a number of classrooms that were vacant, putting pressure on teachers to cover 2. And so when you go from a 67% fill rate to 91, and paying the overhead for that year, the costs are just night and day.
But the dollars could be used site-based for incentives if it's site-based leadership, right? Site-based. Like there are other opportunities. I don't know. That's what the questions are. If the dollars are there, the individual site-based teams could use them as incentives to create those relationships to get the subs in their classrooms.
The key to that is time. So Wendy had an excellent observation, being a former principal secretary. There was times she'd spend all day long.
And they still are, I think. There are certain situations that nobody shows up, and that's when you get the problem with our ESC teachers being pulled. You know, it's still a problem. That's the problem.
So, I'm not gonna go over everything, I just wanna show you a few key points. In last year, when we look at the entire year, you'll see that we spiked in October. On the next slide, you'll see that we spiked in October in terms of overall vacancies. And then you'll also see that we spiked again, and that's usually like the sweet spot. What happens is right before Thanksgiving break, teachers tend to get restless. There aren't really a whole lot of breaks in there, and so as a result, you'll see more absenteeism in October, and then again in April. Same thing, we're either coming off of spring break or going into spring break, and they tend to get restless right before Christmas break. And that's a long time with no break in between. Fridays are usually our higher day as well. If you look at the next slide, that's generally on average our highest day. And then the next slide after that shows the reason for the absences on Fridays. Let me see.
Can I say, I mean, this is some of the best data I've ever seen
Right.
on slides.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll send it to you all as well. I apologize about not sending it earlier.
That would be really good.
Electronic.
Yeah,
There-
because
there-
people
there's-
ask and I can just send it to them.
but, I mean, it's, you know, to some extent to me, Kelly is like a sub-story to this. I mean, this is a story of vacancy and shortage, and if you go, if you go to the next one.
I was just about to say, to that point, Mr. Townsend, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
no,
I
you're
just wanna
right.
show this one.
This is a great slide.
This is a great slide because it shows, so the number one reason why we have subs, or why we utilize Kelly subs, is really for vacancies. And so remember, we have 6,000, maybe call it 6,900 teachers right now. And so we float about 1%, so it ranges, every week I get the updates, it ranges from 56 and it goes up to sometimes as high as 70 in terms of our vacancy rate. That's broken down also in terms of ESC positions or turnaround schools, etc. But our number one reason for utilizing Kelly is vacancies. The next one is sick leave, right? So those are the same day call in, I'm sick, I don't feel good, etc. And then personal chargeable to sick leave as well.
What's the difference between those two times of sick leave? Like,
Personal chargeable to sick leave is, I can just call out, I don't know, it's literally a you're not sick, but it's taken from your sick leave bank.
Right.
But I can just, you don't have a reason, I just.
oh,
Well,
okay.
personal,
It's
is that
coding,
personal
it's gonna be
day?
coding.
Yeah.
Okay, so
You get
it's
so many
but
hours
it's
a
like
year
per
that you get.
personal day. Yeah, it's like
Yeah, then you can
You
charge
have to
to
give
sick.
48 hours notice, don't you?
24.
24.
You
Maybe I
you
just
get
did comments.
48, you get 48.
And then, this is an interesting slide as well. Overall, you'll see that the large majority of our absences are in elementary school, but that's really because we have so many elementary schools. And particularly for the unfilled absences. High schools are better. Others, just as a reference, are like the Travis, Ridge, Real, Bill Duncan, etc. Those are those schools there. And bring your attention, I thought this was neat as well. Hold on for 1 second. Trying to speed it up, I know that we have.
I mean, just the bang for our buck here is in filling our vacancies.
Sorry?
The bang for our buck is in filling vacancies, not
Correct, and
not
we've
chasing
actually
jobs.
done a lot, so far we've touched about, this year we've touched about, I wanna say 2,000.
No, I know. I know it's very difficult. I'm
Yeah.
just generally.
And if you remember, Ms. Porteous and I, we talked about seeing what other districts did about incentives for those
And I
unused
actually
days.
have that information, I need to quantify it and then.
You're
go.
great.
So here's something that was really interesting to me in terms of lead time to fill vacancies or to fill the absences. So this is for, the first pie chart is actually what teachers gave us. So some teachers gave us 2 or more days, that's the lion's share of it, that's 60.4%. And then other teachers gave us 1 day, 29%. And then some teachers, think about those sick leave or sick days, that's 10.6%. And then the time that it takes for Kelly to fill, which was to me eye-opening, is generally it takes them about a day to fill the vacancy. So on average, if you look at less than an hour, it's 65.1%. 1 to 6 hours is 20.7%, and then 6 hours to 1 day is 9.5%. That's about 95% of the vacancies. So when they fill vacancies, if you look back on the filled and unfilled, when they fill a vacancy, it's generally done within a day. So that means that a substitute generally will pick it up in a day. Does that make sense?
Can I ask you something? Does that include, real quick, they accept the job and then the next morning they cancel the accept of the job and then they somebody else accepts and somebody else cancels and,
Yeah, so, it would include any time the job is accepted after it's been created. But in the case that you described where a substitute cancels a job in last minute in the morning, they're not eligible to pick up another job that day. So they're blocked out from the system because we assume if you canceled off of the job, there's a good reason for that, and we don't want you to just be able to go willy-nilly pick up jobs at whatever school.
no, I was talking about the vacancy at the school and then somebody else picks up. How did that, the fill? So like,
It's counted twice.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be in the
Yeah.
data. But
Yeah,
it would have
you see
been,
what I'm getting
say,
at?
Yeah,
a
it's
assignment
two
would have been
vacancies.
created 3 days ago,
Yeah.
and then it gets canceled on the morning of. Well, then whoever picks it up on the morning of, it's gonna
Still a vacancy.
say, okay, well, I was picked up or created 3 days ago, if that makes sense.
yeah, the whole,
And then the last thing I'd like to point your attention to, overall, this was for 17-18 or 18-19, Matt?
This is for 17-18.
Okay, this is for 17-18. So there were 2,000 people recruited. And I want to bring your attention to this part, hired by Polk. There were 233 of the people that they recruited that were hired directly by our schools to fill our positions, meaning they are a pipeline for even us because their reach is so broad, it's much broader than ours. And so we're able to get those high-quality candidates that Mrs. Miller spoke about earlier and actually put them in our classrooms as teachers and or as paras. And so a lot of the legwork that they do in terms of recruiting actually does benefit the district as a whole.
And I would add that for this school year so far, Polk has hired 177 of our substitute employees, so we're trending even higher for this school year.
Oh, you mean this is hired by Polk, not as subs, but as like,
As teachers,
full-time,
as
okay.
teachers,
Okay.
as paras,
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Because what happens is, the principal will say, you know what, Mr. Townsend, I really like
Right.
you in this classroom.
Right.
Have you thought about really becoming a Polk County Public Schools teacher?
Right.
They'll say yes, and then we do the paperwork.
That's how I got hired.
Oh,
Are these still in that kind of netherworld where they're contract subs and they're way reduced pay, or are they coming on as full-time?
no, they're
Depends on
full-time, they get paid $40,972.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about, though, okay.
Right, but no,
Mr. Porteous, would you like copies of the Ledger articles?
yes, please, thank you.
All right.
Are we doing, I know at one time the district we had some issues with center schools and people showing up and leaving just from walking in the door. So we had we had like a pool of subs within the district. But
Yes.
then, do we still do that, or is Kelly now doing?
So that's, well, actually Kelly Services runs it for me. That's how we developed the pilot sub-program. It was just talking to April Sumner at Gino Dell. She said, Tedra, I'm having this issue in terms of not being able to fill vacancies here. And so what we thought of is something that, one, the students could get used to. Because we really didn't want a population, we didn't want them, our most fragile population of students, to be susceptible to others coming in, et cetera. So we thought, okay, let's assign I think it's 4 subs, right? 5 subs there that report on a daily basis, and then she's free to do whatever she needs to do with them. So it's really, really worked out well at Karen Siegel, at
George Sanders?
And at, Gino Dell. So we do that, and it's all run through Kelly.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Fields?
Okay, so I need clarity, Ms. Tedra, on the absenteeism analysis for the teachers. And if I'm looking at this correctly, it's saying that Kathleen,
Okay.
it's saying that Kathleen High School has the highest absenteeism rate. Is this for this year? Last year?
It was for last year, and if you recall, this one, right? This is right.
Yes, that one.
These are the top 30, if I'm not mistaken. Where's Kathleen High School? Kathleen High School does have a lot, but then you have to remember, they were the USF cohort, and so a lot of their absenteeism could be attributed to the professional development that the teachers had to do that were a part of that cohort.
So probably a note would be nice to have there saying that.
It's
Just, and then what about Citrus Ridge? That's a high amount as well.
So what we've noticed is generally on that east side, absenteeism is much higher.
And then the next slide, and I'm gonna go back to that one in a minute, but the next slide is the para. And it has Kaplan Elementary School, I guess that's what that is, KES?
Yes.
Can you explain that slide to me, please?
Find it.
Ms. Fields, where are you at?
Professional they're not numbered.
They're
It's
not
right
numbered.
after-
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's right after the teacher's absenteeism
It's
analysis.
this slide. It looks like this.
Yes, I think it's this one.
Is that the one we're
Yeah.
talking
No,
It says absentee.
this one, the paraprofessional,
Oh,
about? Oh, okay.
and it just has Capitol Elementary, I guess KES is Capitol Elementary School.
Yes, ma'am.
no, that's Kelly. Yes, that's Kelly.
Kelly.
That's Kelly.
That's Kelly Services?
Mm-hmm, that's
Kelly
Kelly,
Educational
because the very
Services.
first one says
Yes.
Polk,
Yes.
the
Can you
the
explain that
12,
one?
it's Kelly.
1415 KES. That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
So in 1213, you'll see it says Polk. That means that Polk managed the
Right.
substitutes.
Okay.
And then in 1415, KES means that it's Kelly Educational Services, and that's when they took over the contract for substitute programs.
And then, two more things. What incentive do we have in place, not Kelly Services, but the school district have in place when there was a high percentage of absenteeism? What do we do to incentivize people not to miss work?
So we've not done anything historically, and that's what Mrs. Courtney and I talked about
We
earlier.
need to.
Providing some sort of incentive. We did talk to Mrs. Capizzello before she left, and the union actually did offer it at bargaining this year, the sick leave buyback, if I'm not mistaken. So that was something that we talked about because of the absenteeism. And quite frankly, I like what Kelly Services does, but when I look at the numbers here, that's money that can go directly back into teachers' pockets, and that's what I explained to Mrs. Capizzello before she left. So realistically, we are looking into what other districts are doing to provide some sort of incentive for them.
I think that's critical.
Ms. Cunningham?
Okay, and I know we gotta move, just very quickly. I don't know what page this is, because they're not numbered, but it says school name analysis, teachers, para, clerical. So like 6 or 7 in. On the bottom, it's got school names. Some of the highest ones are mine. Citrus Ridge, Laurel, Lake Marion Creek, and Palmetto. Once again, the complaints I hear the most are from the schools on the east side because of their lack of ability to get substitute teachers. So my question is, I mean, we're talking about incentivizing across the board, but I also think something needs to be looked at to be able to allow, to have better coverage than the schools that are farther out, if that's the right word. I hear it all the time. So I don't know if we've gotten better at it or not, but I continually hear that. So is there something that you have in place or will be putting in place to meet the needs of those on the very eastern side of our county?
Yes, ma'am. So, you know, one of the things that Senator talked about a couple of times is that the building sub program. So we're looking to become a little bit more focused on where we have those building substitutes. Right now, we have a couple of building subs at a school that maybe only has one unfilled absence per day, where we could better utilize those people in a school that has a higher need more consistently. So yes, ma'am, we have all that analytics on that, and we're
Really?
ready to go.
And I apologize, I've been in and out. My shop got broken into while we were here, and I had alarms going off and police officers. So I apologize, I had to step out twice, trying to deal with all of that at the same time. So you may have covered it, and I apologize that I didn't hear it, but that is a huge concern to me.
Currently, Mrs. Cunningham, building subs are in those schools that are designated high needs. So in our D schools, that was the priority because most of those schools have high absenteeism.
I understand.
We thought it was good for students to see the same person every day.
Sure.
Regardless of maybe
Sure.
you're assigned to 3rd grade today,
Understand.
you're assigned to 2nd grade, or maybe you're just a building para.
Sure.
But you're doing small group pullouts, but we wanted to ensure the consistency with that population of students.
Okay.
However, we have talked about it in terms of being on the east side of the county. Obviously, Disney and all of that is right there, and so we have that factor. But what we're talking about doing is likely doing building subs up there as well to just make sure it's stable.
I think we need to look at that. I think that's really important, you know?
Certainly.
And also my second point is, and you may have covered it, is the increase in pay. I heard that in the beginning and then I had to step out. Okay, all right, those are my 2 points. Thank you very much.
Ms. Reynolds?
Sorry. just looking at some of these charts, it would be really helpful to have it broken down somehow by how many teachers are at the school. Just because if we're looking at how many absences there are, obviously Citrus Ridge is going to have a lot more than Inwood because there's
K, right.
400 students at Inwood and there's 1,400 at Citrus Ridge.
Yeah.
So, you know, it doesn't concern me when I see those two side by side, but I think if we could
Well,
show
it's
some.
percentage though, isn't it?
Yes, it is a percentage.
It's percentage,
Yes.
so
It's
it's
a-
already done that.
On the left, it says absence volume. Is that, so
So,
it's
might
going
be
by
another
the
chart.
percentage on each of them?
We try to cram so much data
Yeah, it might be another chart.
Right, but this side
So
shows
the
volume.
bar, on the right where it says absence volume, that's measuring that bar.
Right.
So, when you're looking at that, that's the total absence volume. But whenever we do
Oh,
the
I see.
calculation for absenteeism, that factors in the number of
On the other
teachers.
side.
Gotcha.
So that it's a level playing field across the board out of 180 working schools.
So the
rate
number
down
of
there, okay.
absences is the green bar, the star, or
Is the rate.
little diamond is the rate.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sorry for not numbering the page, that's my fault.
because the fill rate seems pretty,
If you
level.
look at the slide right before the pie charts, actually, that's the absenteeism analysis for the pairs and CDATs. And then it says absentee analysis teachers, maybe a few slides back, it looks like this.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's a great slide.
Yeah, this one is the one that Mr. Tidwell was talking about in terms of the overall amount of absences and the absenteeism rate.
Right.
The diamond there is the rate, and that's the one that's compared,
Okay.
compared to the number of teachers.
Go ahead, Terry.
First, Ms.
Go
Courtney,
ahead.
then Mr. Townsend.
Well, I'm just gonna say what I hear, because I only got half pay. I started the year, they stopped giving 100% pay for sick days when you retire. That was my first year teaching. And I never bothered to collect any sick days except enough to get into the valuable sick bank. You know, because I thought, my goodness, I could, you run over tomorrow, whatever, you know, what good is it? I could win if I played. They're not getting my money. But anyways, my point is 100% pay of those days, and I know people abuse the system, and I get all that, and they got these big, huge parachute things, but the majority of our teachers are, maybe it would be an option. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. If they elected to, go that way, 100% pay for the day versus half the pay. People, that's just not an incentive for them to go to work. I just hate to say it, but kind of thing. Yes, sir.
There's a statutory limit to how much you can pay out in a year, and I think it's 80. Still better than the 50. It is an
Really, when did
incentive.
that come, Mr. Prone? Because I think some districts pay 100%, at least according to their board members.
No, on the incentive in the year, if you wanted to pay it in that year, for this year.
Oh, I see, year by year by year. No,
I
that's am I
guess you can go
collecting.
up to 95, 100.
I think you're just saying hold at
When you
the higher
resign
percentage.
entirely
Oh.
of the district.
I follow what you're saying, 'cause we have 4 tiers now.
Uh-huh.
But I think even that's determined by statute, I don't think we can go above the 50% overall payout
For retirees?
for
Yeah,
retirees.
you can.
Yeah, that's,
You can.
you can pay out up to 100%.
Oh, we can, okay.
Yeah.
You can,
Yeah, you can. She's on the same one you're on,
you can.
but you can't pay more.
Yeah, that's local policy.
You can.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Mr. Townsend?
This absentee analysis teacher slide, I would love, I don't know how hard this is to do, but on a monthly basis, on a monthly basis, if you could, you had the different categories about, if you could just have on this slide, vacancies, color coded on this.
Which
I
slide
mean,
are you on?
this slide,
Okay, so that is
right,
one.
that
This
one.
one.
I mean, this slide tells you more about a school than any school grade does. I mean, if I was a parent, this is the first slide I'm gonna look at. It's
So is
Staff-
that something
ethic.
you like at,
yeah. I mean, whether Kelly's doing it, I mean, again, this is a much more interesting discussion for me, just for absenteeism, not and vacancy than it is for Kelly. I mean, I think you're fighting the same stuff we're fighting. But this is, I think, if we're ever gonna create our own way of talking about the schools, our own schools, this is where you start. Where we have full staffing and where where people are in school all the time. So I just, this is a really good slide.
I'd almost bet money too that it would.
I'm sorry?
That slide every monthly,
I'm sorry?
monthly.
This slide on.
I'll follow up with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll follow up.
I think Matt was writing down.
How much you wanna bet it would correlate with student absences too? Just saying.
Mr. Brown had it correct. The statute allows annual payout at the daily rate of pay multiplied by up to 80%. And then there's a sliding schedule for terminal payout, and it starts at 35% after the first 3 years and can go up to 100% after 13 years. But that's
Right,
discretionary.
that's what I said. Okay.
Based on service. Interesting.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to email this to you as well.
Yeah,
Thank you
that'd be
so
great.
much. Yeah, that would be great.
fantastic.
Okay. And you have the job description, and then we'll hand it off to Mr. Bridges after that one.
So you see before you, there are about 18 job descriptions that we changed. These are in the absentee unit or in the maintenance and custodial services. The reason why we're changing them is because, quite honestly, it dovetails off of Kelly. We're having a hard time really filling these positions. Some of our requirements were really high, so you'll notice that we're changing the experience and or the education required, the certifications, and also some of the lifts as well. So it was reduced from 80, being able to lift 80 pounds to then now only being able to lift 50 pounds. And so what we're trying to do is really fill a lot of those vacancies. Case in point, our carpenters I've advertised the carpenters, I think, for probably about a year, and we've not really received any great quality candidates just because our job description is not up to date, for lack of a better term. So.
Ms. Reynolds?
I just want to say thank you for this. We had a conversation probably 3 or 4 months ago now about our academies and how we could graduate them from our electric program, but they couldn't come and work for the district, which I think is doing us a disservice. So I think this gives, it allows our students to come and work for us, which I think if we're saying they're good enough to go out and work in the real world, that we should be able to hire them as well.
It's a
So
starting point.
I agree. That's right.
It's a starting point for us.
Ms. Cunningham?
And I noticed a lot of them, it was due to licensures. You know what I'm saying? And quite frankly, piggybacking on what Ms. Reynolds just said, if they are able to come to work for us or whatever, then through time, they're gonna obtain those licensures and we'll be able to train them and grow them our own way. So I think that's a very positive thing. Because it wasn't like it took any qualifications off, just on the licensure piece for a lot of them that I read through, it said preferred now instead of required, which does give younger individuals an opportunity to come and be a part of the Pope family and learn, and then eventually graduate to the point that they can pass their license exam. So it's a win-win, I do believe, yeah.
Mr. Milhorn was very
Yes.
instrumental, I have to give him credit back there. Mr. Milhorn was very instrumental in saying, hey, Tedra, here's what I'm thinking, can we do it? And so in looking at it, it is obviously possible.
Makes sense.
And so we did it.
Just goes
So it's a win-win.
teamwork.
Teamwork, that's right.
teamwork makes the dream work.
Okay, Mr. Townsend?
Can I ask one quick thing back to the Kelly thing? Like you had said something about if we stay with them, do we have a particular renewal time coming, or are we putting this out to bid? What's the status on?
No, so
on
the
that?
contract for you is what we call an evergreen contract. There is a termination provision in there. It does allow for us, I think, 30 days, for us to notify them within 30 days if we're going to terminate the contract. There are some competitors out there. EES, I think it's ESS, I'm sorry, is one of them, and PESG is another one that are some other districts use. So there was conversation earlier between Mrs. Bird and I about putting the bid out there to see, just because they, when Kelly first came on, we did not have, no one else was there, but now the market, there are some competitors, other competitors in the market. So Mrs. Bird did ask me about it, maybe about 2 months ago, I think, or something like that.
Is there a requirement that we terminate to do that? Is there some way for us to bid?
I would not recommend us terminating before doing that.
Well, no, I'm just, well, no, I wouldn't either. I guess my point is I didn't know if there's something built into the contract where we can't test the waters if we're actively with them? Like that, I guess that was what I was asking about. Like, is there some sort of penalty for us to look out and see what's going on?
And we discussed that, like she said, about right before break, I believe we were having that conversation, because there were other companies that have come about now. And we were very transparent with Mr. Tidwell and allowed him to say that we know they're out there and we think we do need to take a look, and it gives him the opportunity to actually come back and, bring something back to us as well. And I think when we talked, it was like we have to let them know in 30 days, I believe, is that correct?
That's just the termination.
The termination.
I think what
Just a
Mr. Townsend
test.
is asking for, yes, I think we can do
We
that.
can go
I would
out.
not recommend terminating until we actually have another provider in place.
But again, what I'm asking is can we bid it without terminating them?
Based on my understanding of the contract, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Bridges?
I have to look at the language of the
Okay,
contract.
it's all right.
There's nothing that prohibits you from doing a market survey, but if you do an RFP, that you're sending a pretty strong signal.
And we'll
Right,
make
so
sure
are
we're
you guys gonna
legal.
have a recommendation about that, or are you just gonna move forward, or like, just curious?
I need to get with Wes, I
Yeah.
know, to make sure legally.
Yeah, let's
And then
let's
we'll
look at that,
let the
'cause-
board know, but we
Yeah,
did
you-
say that, with others being out there.
Yeah, the community wants to see us
Yes.
at least attempt, because
It-
we
the
had
the
no
rule of
bid
thumb-
before.
Rule of thumb is, before you go out for an RFP, make sure you're willing to give up what you got, because it typically you don't incur savings when you do that, because the costs continue to go up.
So we have a question, so as far as without terminating, can you test? And that would be
Right.
something.
Yeah,
for
you
us
can
to
always
look at.
always
I guess
test
that's-
the waters, do market surveys and research.
And I don't actually have a particular opinion on this. I mean, I just was curious
Well,
what
I
our,
think it's just fair to look at what you have. And we'll get with you.
but this was good data.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll hand it off to you, Mr. Bridges. That's his piece, if you want to hand it to him next.
Let's see. On the elections and electioneering, which is a nice word, all of you saw the information. Of course, Mr. Bridges has been timely in giving us information all along. We had the information he sent last August, then recently before our last work session, and then we asked him to provide information, which he did in the backup to today's meeting. And so we wanted to discuss a couple different things. Number one was, the do's and the don'ts, which I think you outlined beautifully. In essence of time, I'm gonna try to roll it along. So we kind of understand that. The second piece was Mr. Wilson was gonna chat with Mr. Nolan and bring back some information, and if you could very quickly
Sure.
give us that update, sir.
I did talk with Mr. Nolan. He said he'd be happy to come to the meeting on the 17th and answer questions. Specifically, I asked him to talk about the importance of polling, thoughts about the pros and cons of trying to do this by the November election, involving our community, forming a pact, things like that. So he said he'd be happy to do that. So if the board is interested in hearing from him, he'll be happy to be here on the 17th.
Thank you. And the other piece we talked about was trying
Yeah.
to do the two things, as you called it,
It's similar.
synonymously. Do you want to speak about?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
I had what I thought was a very successful discussion with the person I had mentioned. I want to check back with this person before I further identify this person. But so you're talking about having Dolan here at the 17th.
Yeah.
So maybe I could bring this person to the
Person.
17th if this person
Or
is still
invite them to
inclined.
attend
Right,
would be
right,
great.
right,
Yeah.
right. So
I mean-
so they were getting.
Correct.
If the board wants to schedule a special meeting, I'm sure he'd be happy to come sooner.
No,
but
no, I think that's fine. I was just trying to be precise. All right, good.
So if everybody's on board, I guess by consensus, I would ask, do we want to continue to have this discussion to try to see what Mr. Nolan can present, discussion of polling, which would then lead us to the next step of trying to get this done, trying to see if we could have it completed in, or put on the ballot for the November 2020 election. That's kind of where we're driving. Is everybody by consensus in agreement
For
to invite Mr.
2020,
Nolan?
or I thought we were looking
Yeah, I
towards
thought we
a
were
further
looking out further
timeline.
out.
I'm not in support of it for 2020.
Based on the poll, but right
Okay.
now we were trying to do 2020 is what we were looking at, but unless the polling says different, that's what I'm saying, we'd have to move forward with polling and Mr. Nolan and all of that. That is correct.
And I think it's just depending on what the polling says.
Right.
I'm fine with polling, but I do not think that we should, I'm not in favor of doing it in 2020, so we can move forward with polling, but,
Okay.
so.
I have the
Yes,
same, so if we do the polling now and
Yes.
it's looked at that we're not, do we pay to poll again before we attempt this? We could use the
I
same
don't think
poll
so.
results.
Multiple dates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that was addressed in the memo. You can't pay for polling.
No.
Right.
And the board should not, a PAC can do that, but you gotta make sure that the PAC is independent, that it
Oh, yeah,
is
of
not
course.
representing the board. And a PAC can raise funds for that, but you can't use public money for that at all.
Right, I understood that. I just didn't know if the poll that we take now, could use, it would give us enough information to do
Oh,
it.
sure.
The time frame. Because I don't know if you have enough board members that are on board for 2020 even looking at the poll.
I think it's the way the questions are posed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the easy thing to that'd be like poll them by date, you know, same poll, but two or three different questions.
Questions, right?
But I think that's a good question for Mr.
To ask
Nolan,
him,
right?
yes,
Right.
sir, yeah. I think that's perfect. Okay, then, Mr. Wilson, would you be so kind and contact Mr. Nolan, ask him to be here then on the March 17th date, and if you'd be so kind and reach out to your community leader, and we can then move forward with that. And Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Bridges, thank you for the timely information.
Pleasure.
That was easy to read and easy to understand.
Can I ask
Any
one-
other questions on electioneering before we move forward?
Just one point of clarification that's pretty unique to me. Like, I have a website I write on that's my own, that's during a campaign, it's paid. During when I'm not campaigning, it's personal. I think either of those, I'm fine to advocate,
Yeah,
from what, it's just like giving a speech,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you can
No public money,
communicate
right.
individually.
Right.
Any forum, you can have a personal conversation, and if it's your own personal website and no district funds are used for that, I don't
Right.
think that's gonna be a conflict.
Okay.
Thank you for that. All right. Madam Chair, is there any other questions?
Okay, so at this point, we have, 2 information items. Are there any questions, the financial statements and the grants, or the normal items?
Okay. All right, then I will, in the essence of time, I'll go through the agenda review very quickly. Right, I'm up next?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. So let's do C1 through C9. C10 through C24. C25 through C32. On the regular agenda, R33 through R35. And do we have an attorney's report today, Mr. Bridges?
No, ma'am.
Do not? And Ms. Matthews, do we have an auditor's report?
No, ma'am.
All right. I think that's it. Anybody have any questions? I know I went quick.
That's okay. I looked at this earlier. Is tonight when we are having the adult school cafeteria, was it gonna be tonight right here? No, that's East Side. Remember, we're gonna have that, where's Mr. Cochran? That was going, remember we decided that, to name the cafeteria for that person?
Mm-hmm. Did they not get in touch with them? Do you know when?
They were supposed to be here. I hope they're not coming and we're not on the agenda.
Are you checking with them?
You checking?
I'm checking.
Okay.
We'll check. I know
If you have to add
didn't we
them.
do it at the
Yeah,
work
it's
session?
an
We
easy.
did it at the work
That's
session, but
easy.
I think they were told
Tonight.
this tonight's meeting, and I think they're they're planning to come.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Who can
How
draw
did
the
we miss
certificate?
that? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We got a print shop.
Yes, of course.
So my question is, I don't see any gifts from the community. Is there
Donations?
donations?
So with
That
the,
is it.
the new board doc stuff is starting to move over and drop off of e-agenda, is how that's happening, and they bucket those. Ms. Winchester,
Yes.
would you wanna tell them how that, and I know the board docs training is coming,
Okay.
and,
Part of my report. There we go.
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yep, you ready? Okay, so since you're there, April 14th, after our work session, they're very flexible to wait until we're done, and we will have it for 1 hour after that, board docs training for all of us together. Okay? So please mark that down. Couple things quickly. I was hoping to have the master board training, the next module, on April 7th. Susan had gotten with them and we had everything set up, and then superintendent called me this morning, and we're not able to do that now. She has a conflict with that date. So one quick question I wanted to ask. We contracted with FSBA, I'm just trying to get it out there, because some of you are actively moving forward in it, others aren't. I think we need to clarify. We contracted with them last year to pay $4,500 for these 4 training sessions. We've had one, February of 2019. I was gonna try to schedule the second one here in April. It may not happen till the fall. So I have 2 questions. This would be our second out of 4 that's required. And my question is everybody in favor of doing this? Ms. Field?
I know that we've had to, postpone the sessions for different reasons, all legitimate reasons. I think with us possibly having, 3 new board members in November, that we need to wait and see if they will hold those sessions until after we get past, this year. That's just my opinion on the
Okay.
subject matter.
In that contract, are you guaranteeing that money? And like, my question is, I didn't find much value in the first one, and so I'm asking if we will get any money in return if we decide not to do them.
No, I've already asked that question, and
It's pay-go. I mean, it's not pay-go, it's the whole
from
thing.
what I understand, no. It's paid, it's done.
Just use it later, is that what it is?
I don't know if we're allowed to do that, I don't know if there's an expiration date. I really don't know all that, I didn't do that
It was
contract,
supposed
so.
to be completed
By,
by May, within the first, it runs about a year, but she was willing to extend the timeline.
So it can be extended now.
Yes, ma'am, I'm not
Yes.
sure how they would be willing to extend.
I think that's, yeah.
okay, so hold that thought, so that's probably first a question, could you make a note? Number 1, if we waited until the new electorate in November of 2020, would they be willing to wait? But that would mean we'd have to start over, right? Because that new person or persons, I'm not sure. So can you ask,
I'll speak with her.
please?
Oh,
See what
I'm
the cost
sure you're gonna
difference would
start
be,
over.
if there is one. Assuming we can do that, how does the other board members feel?
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah,
see her hand up.
that was my same thought, was that rushing to get it all done in the next
Right.
6 months when
Right.
we may have a
New,
new board.
new situation,
Unless
yes.
we lose money.
I mean, my feeling on this, I thought the first one was reasonably helpful. I think overall, I sort of agreed to this in the first place as kind of a gesture to go along. Like I can kind of go either way. Like if there's the majority on either side that wants to go a certain way, I don't like to have if we plop down money to do it. Like
No.
that's unfortunate.
I know, we need to- Okay,
So I mean
Thank
that's
you.
fine.
Ms. Fortney?
I think all training can be valuable. We put everybody else through training, and you know, even if you get one thing from it, that's how I used to look at all the ones I went to. Then it was worth it. And if we've already paid, I don't want to lose
We
the
have,
money.
yeah, we have.
Yeah, that's good. Let me just say, if somebody beats me, I will sit down with whoever beats me and go over the training.
Okay.
But then I will be a model transitionist.
I love it.
I will. I vow to all of you right now.
We're still recording, right?
Yeah.
Good that.
Where's the microphone?
With my thanks.
Yes, yes.
That could be
Okay.
construed as a contract.
Wonderful.
That's
Okay.
part of their employee benefits package.
So you're gonna find out how long we can keep pushing it off before they
Yes,
take
that's
the
what we're
money
gonna
out.
find out. Yeah, yeah.
Well, but I don't think we need to. I don't think we should do that. I mean, like we should go ahead and push to get it done then as a group. But I mean, and honestly, those of us who are still around or not still around have to commit to being team players to the people who come behind us. Honestly, I mean, if that's the point of the whole thing, right?
Yes, Mr. Wilson, yeah.
I'm flexible, whatever everybody else wants to do, but I would offer this, they are gonna charge us to start over. Now, they may
Right.
take the money that we haven't spent yet and
Yeah.
apply that.
Oh, it's a
That's-
credit.
Yeah.
as a
Okay,
credit,
yes.
But they're gonna,
Yes.
they're not gonna,
Yeah.
That's something to check on.
Yeah, let us do kind of a little bit of investigative work and then we'll bring.
Can we get like
back
two
next time.
sessions in one? Could we
Right.
double up on it there?
I don't know.
Oh.
Usually
Susan, did you
they're-
get all that? 2 sessions in one day?
the
See what the
sessions,
options
the-
are.
Maybe it could be prorated.
the coming sessions are day-long sessions, so you're
Right.
talking about
Well, they were the
all
morning.
day and
Yeah.
all night.
Well, let's find out. We don't know till we ask, right? We'll find out what options are, realizing there's an election in November and that we're trying to figure out how to do this.
Okay.
So the consensus is to continue. We're trying to figure out, do we do it before the election, after the election? And if so, would there be any prorated dollars towards that? I don't know. If you'd be so kind and kind of look into it for us, I appreciate it. I've just passed out the new discussion items sheet, so y'all should have one. Trying to give you dates. I mean, we're trying to move along here. And you can see some of the ones coming up. I don't think I have to read them out loud, but anyways, the arts is next on the 14th.
Is it just an overview of our fine arts programs?
No, she had something more specific. I don't know.
I had said the arts in general, but also the drum beat program.
Yeah, I think she had that originally on her sheet, so I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, the next one's pretty.
And the next one's pre-K, and we're trying to go through them, so if y'all have any other things that come up, I was hoping you would have taken my dates and just transferred it to your original sheet, because I didn't have Sarah Beth's words. Sarah Beth's words were something, I just wrote the arts because I didn't know what it was called, because she submitted it to you. But instead, she took my sheet and just made copies, so I apologize. We'll get the new ones out to y'all with your name down there. It was more than arts and drum beat or whatever you had written, drum beat program. I didn't have it on my sheet because I never got your email. But anyways, you at least have dates. Superintendent and I got together and tried to put more dates on those discussion items. If you need others, here. I do have an extra one. Yeah, absolutely, I have one extra. Yep. Yes, yes. On April the 28th, there's a homeless luncheon that's being held, and we should be able to be out in time in order to start the work session at 1 instead of 12:30. So if that's agreeable to everybody on the board, we'll go ahead and push the work session to 1 p.m. And we should be able to attend both events for everybody, so we don't have to pick and choose, you know, what we're going to, so. And I think, the only thing I have then is, board docs, we talked about, the sheets, I think I'm good.
What date was that, Ms. Cunningham? I'm sorry.
It was April the 28th.
Oh, I have it, okay.
Oh. Ms. Fields, yes. No. Ms. Miller?
You mentioned April 7th and you didn't say anything, so we're not doing anything.
We are
April
not
7th.
doing
Okay.
April 7th because she has folks coming in from overseas regarding the, West does, sorry, regarding the, Irma,
Oh,
all of that.
Okay.
So that he asked superintendent clear the calendars for the 6th and 7th, and the 7th would have been the day that we were gonna propose for that master board training.
okay, thank you.
Yes, so sorry. Ms. Reynolds?
My question was just today we had a lot of great presentations today from this, which I thought that the elite program was on this list before too, but it doesn't look like it was. But if we originally had talked about doing those on the date that we didn't have our 5 o'clock board meeting, I just am worried, today luckily we had a lighter schedule, but
Yeah.
the fact that we only had 20 minutes blocked off for charter schools when we know
Sure.
that always takes us
Sure.
an hour.
Right.
I just wanna make sure that we have time to ask questions, cause I think that all of these presentations are really, really valuable.
Yes.
I just wanna make sure that
Yes.
we're not said, we can only talk about the elite program for 20 minutes, cause.
No, and I
I think it's
apologize, I
beneficial for our
didn't see
community.
those sheets till I just passed them out, so I apologize, I'll get with Susan, we'll get them cleaned up, but it was on there. The other question, to answer your question, yes, I'm just trying to make sure to insert them as much as we can. The piece I think, unfortunately, that we missed is Tedra's presentation. Had that been sent in an attachment, everybody could have kind of looked at those, and it would have been more of a question and answer rather than the whole presentation plus Q&A. So, I just didn't realize what you were bringing. The information was awesome. But we're gonna try to do that. I've learned from today, quite frankly, that anything that we discuss, like Wes's information, needs to be sent at least, a couple days before this work session so that we can review them. But yeah, it's very important to me that we cover those items, and if I save them for just the offbeat meetings, we'll never make it to November.
I mean, even if we do 2 on the offbeat meetings, I just trying to cram them in between. I mean, we're already at 4 o'clock, and I know
Sure.
we have discipline, so.
Sure.
I just wanna make sure we have time.
We got it, we're doing our
Okay.
best, y'all just have to be patient with us.
I agree with Sarah.
Okay? Anybody else?
Just a question, and I know we just added an item for the 17th. So if we look like, and that's our only meeting, if we
Yes.
look like it's gonna be pushed, I'll let you know.
Sure.
And we may have to adjust.
Adjust it accordingly.
Because looking at, the discussion with Tom Nolan.
You bet.
Okay.
So that's gonna
Just
take a
to let
little
you
bit of
know.
time.
And I'm
Okay.
okay with that, if it has to be. pushed.
You're okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right.
All right, yeah, absolutely.
Definitely
That's
appreciate our
flexible.
getting
We're,
pushed.
we're working towards trying to get all those on there, so, so we may be moving,
Because, we're gonna, start on 45 minutes.
at least, right? Yeah, for the discussion.
I'll look at the agenda. and
Okay,
let you know.
super, and we'll talk. Awesome. Any other comments?
Are we in board comment? Are we board commenting, or are we commenting on you?
Commenting on anything you wanna comment. Go ahead. Board comments is fine.
Gotcha.
I would
I know.
love for somebody to show me why we can't put steps for our employees into the budget, that I would really understand.
Mr. Perone. Come to him.
When you say step,
Steps. Experience steps.
I think she needs levels.
I get 5 million comments a day. If I just have my steps, I wouldn't be looking to work at McDonald's, that kind of thing.
so we have 2 salary schedules now. The grandfather
Yes,
and the pay for performance.
yes.
Pay for performance kind of sets the, what the raise is. So if you are highly effective, you get, and there's a range of
Right.
numbers you can get, and then everybody kind of falls in line from there. So during budget, if you wanna say, we wanna give 1,200 to highly effective, I will give you those figures for all those folks, guesstimate, that'll be highly effective. And we'll give 900 or 600 to effective, and then I will build a budget with that number in it, showing you what, with the revenue and what the raise is, and then we can go from there. And we'll have to cut other things, and we'll bring stuff that we can cut. I can budget as much as you want.
If you budget in,
We have to cut as much as you budget, because we don't get nearly the revenue
And is
that we want or need.
But
But yes,
I
you could
understand
always-
that,
You
but
could
the-
always budget that up front,
But
absolutely.
there's a rule.
Salary schedule shows, it is different, I know, but the salary schedule shows years of experience. This is what I need y'all to clarify for me, so that when I get bombarded,
Statute changed and all, and I think that's what you're looking for the
yes,
description.
I need help.
Yeah, that is a larger conversation.
Can I meet with you and let you, or send me something, I don't care, I don't need to meet.
Well, I mean,
2011.
I'd like it
Send me
too.
him.
We'll get it to you.
Which a raise, you can budget.
No,
that for-
I can generally articulate why, but I think in the same way we had really good data here on absences, a little thing that spells that out would be helpful.
Yeah.
I agree.
My,
We could do that.
It's a recurring cost, so
I'm gonna
to
put that.
put it in there, you have to have recurring revenue.
Well, there's also a rule that you can't give a larger raise to
Right.
to a grandfathered
I'm
person,
familiar with
which
all that.
locks in,
Oh.
gets you, like, it pushes you down. Like,
Got to be less.
Right, so
So are
um,
we gonna
but I got like,
talk about that?
Oh,
Can I-
actually, whoa, I'm not.
uh,
These are all, I don't know who I'm talking to now, but these are all my emails about LSI and the stuff they have to do with LSI.
John?
If anybody would like to read them, I would be glad. I'm just gonna go through real quick. Robot, can't we just listen to the story? Sad. LSI don't work. Burden. Not of teaching kids. I'm tired of not teaching kids. Being told how to run my classroom. Frustrated. Teachers are afraid that it will affect their evaluation. Robot again. Forcing us to teach does not work. Please, if there is anybody listening, LSI, I don't know how many a day that just, it's driving them insane. The stuff on the walls, the, whatever.
LSI?
Just see me afterwards.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sarah, can we add that to the sheet to be discussed, like one of your topics?
How many times am I gonna say it?
No, but they need to, I think that, because Mr.
It's
Hill's
on
over here
here.
explaining how he hears there's good things, so there needs to be some kind of
No, I
presentation.
said I wanna hear from all.
Yeah, so we need a presentation, I think that would be
So-
good.
It's added.
And I think some places the implementation goes better than others perhaps. So I think certainly we need to take
Perhaps.
a look at it. Well,
But I have been emailing Mr. Hill, he is working on it, I know, but I just wanna bring it up. For the people that have emailed me, I have brought it up.
yes,
is
ma'am.
it,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I mean,
And
is
you
it a,
have
is it a
talked to me
bank or
about
buck
it.
And I have.
question? Right.
Yes, ma'am, and we're aware of it, and we're looking at it.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do have 3 discipline cases this afternoon. So far, we're not aware that we have any parents planning to attend, but we do have those cases to attend
And
to.
they're ready.
Okay.
I mean, I have 6 things that that are more like question statements to like throw out. I don't have to like have them discussed. I could talk about it tonight, or I can run through them real quick now. Which do you prefer?
I'd rather do it now.
All right.
Yeah.
There's been some back and forth on the new state testing monitoring rules, and
That was it.
one of the things I wanted to ask about, and the state has sent a number of pretty passive aggressive notes on this. We've heard quite a bit from the state in the last month or so that all hiring decisions, all disciplinary decisions are local decisions. I've also heard people saying that as part of the training on the test proctoring and administering, that there's a lot of, if you do this or you do that, you're risking your certification. So my question is, what's the mechanism by which, if I'm a teacher and I go and I wake a kid up now that I'm not allowed to, that gets reported? Who does that get reported to? Who does the reporting? Who does that get reported to? Is there a, I mean, like who's the secret police there? Just out of
There's a
curiosity.
secret police, there's to both me and Sandy, and then generally Sandy will send it to her folks in FLDOE or testing folks that then say, yes, you all need to do some preliminary investigation, or you don't need to do an investigation, we'll do the investigation for you. However, there is a statute that says any discipline of any certified personnel does have to go to PPS, and then they look at it as well.
But
So it's kind of
PPS
both,
is,
professional practices, I forget what the S is, sorry.
that's the state org?
That's the state employee relations department, but generally when we get testing, anomalies or issues or anything, it does go to both me and Sandy, and then we kind of forward it on from there.
But that,
Because what will happen then is that test may have to be invalidated, or that classroom of tests does have to be invalidated, and so the state has to know that.
so the scenario would be what? How many people are in a classroom at any given time giving a test?
You talking about instructors?
Yeah, as a,
No more than 2.
No.
so somebody says, come on, you can do it. That other person has to report them. And that's how that we
Or
get.
a child could say something and a parent could report it.
Yeah, that's the only way. We don't have any police out there.
There's
Okay.
different ways.
Okay, that I was curious how that pipeline worked. on the reading endorsement question, there seems to have at least started with a giant universe of people, and maybe the universe has shrunken, maybe it hasn't. Again, the state not being helpful in how they communicate. Can we clarify this a bit?
And Everett is here.
Okay.
So the pool has not shrunk, unfortunately. It really comes down to the students that you serve. So in the past, if a teacher held a certification and they could teach ELA to elementary students, so elementary education K6, K5, they were covered under their certification to provide any level of instruction that student might need. Under the new statute, any teacher that provides a tier 3 level of instruction in intensive reading, so it is intensive reading intervention, they must be reading endorsed. So it's twofold. One, their certification that makes them eligible, but are they assigned to teach those interventions? So I could have an elementary certification but not be teaching ELA. I could be math or science. And while I wouldn't be required to be reading endorsed, I have been recommending to folks, if you hold a certification that makes you eligible, teach that so your principal can assign you next year, you may want to consider going ahead and finishing that endorsement. But anyone that provides tier 3 level of instruction, K through 12, must hold that reading endorsement now.
Regardless of how well they've done it for X number of years.
So
if they,
that's
if they
a
were
great
to,
point, and I will tell you, I've heard from a lot of teachers who they feel like there's a personal indictment, right? I've been doing this for so many years, and all of a sudden I'm not good enough, I'm not credentialed. And so I think the state, this is my own personal editorial, but I think the state kind of heard that message, and that's why they passed the option in November that if you can pass that subject area exam and demonstrate your proficiency on those skills, foundational skills, that sort of thing, then we'll endorse you without the coursework.
okay, and that, so have we been steering people into that?
So that's a good question. We've been sharing the information. So the state, when they passed that state rule, very specifically said that that subject area exam has a 64% pass rate. And keeping in mind that the folks that sat for that exam previously have a master's in reading, because that was a qualification to become certified. So we've been telling them, yes, that's an option. However, knowing that that's a large investment for teachers to take that exam and risk that money, let's be wise about it. So much like ESOL endorsement, when an ELA teacher provides instruction to an ELL student, they also get tagged with 300 hours of ESOL instruction. In that rule, they have to take 2 competency courses and then they can sit for the exam. So when I speak with teachers and I speak to coaches and that sort of thing, I tell them, look at the content of each of those competencies. If you feel like you've got that covered, great. If you feel like there's a specific area in which you might be deficient or you're not up to snuff, you might want to take that one course.
Right.
We've ordered prep books for them. I had 2 members on our team pass last week, so we've shared that information and their experiences with them. We do want to encourage that, but we don't want to simply say, go forth, and then they risk it and it wasn't a good gamble. So we're trying to help them make a really great decision on what's best for them.
In your professional opinion,
It's all going to show.
do you think this new credentialing is going to have a measurable effect or a perceptible effect on how Tier 3 interventions go?
So I can share with you my personal experience. I have an elementary education background. So the vast majority of my degree work from quite a while ago really was in reading instruction. And I went and finished my endorsement about 1.5 years ago, I would say. A lot of it was a refresher. I'm like, oh yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, I remember doing that. Oh yeah, that's a great strategy. I will tell you the recent research, particularly, for example, dyslexia. Once upon a time, we thought that was kind of a permanent condition. We know that that can actually be treated and not cured, but really teach kids strategies to be very successful despite that diagnosis. So I will say I personally learned a great deal of that. I think where it's going to come in handy, to be very honest with you, it's not the 27-year-old veteran that has a degree in elementary education. It's going to be these teachers that have joined our forces from outside of education. They don't have that elementary background, but they were able to pass an elementary subject area exam, right? So they have those basic competency skills, but they really don't have any coursework in reading instruction. I'll also mention the new PEC program coming in starting next year. Those teachers will also have to have competencies 1 through 4 to finish PEC. Not PEC, I'm sorry, ACE programs. Whereas before they only had to have competency 2. The state truly is making a concerted effort to make sure anyone providing intensive reading interventions is credentialed, whether they can pass the proficiency exam, they earn a master's and pass the exam, or they take the competency courses.
Can I ask a question about that's on that topic?
Mhm.
We are paying for the classes, is that correct?
The classes are offered
The classes are offered.
free of charge. They can also take them through some other centers that have their courses approved, Schultz Center, NEFET, but they're of a substantial cost. But yes, ours are offered free of charge to teachers.
Are other districts offering the classes, or what are they?
As far as I know, I can't answer that for sure. Every district, including colleges and universities, have to submit approved coursework. There's a matrix that they give us the shell, and we have to demonstrate that we're meeting each of those pieces within our coursework. And I believe every district has an approved plan. I mean, I can't say that for sure. Up until recently, we only offered 1, 2, 3, and 5. We've added 4 to our lineup to make sure that it's free of charge for teachers. But each district is responsible. We are having to recertify. We just submitted our first draft, but we have to be recertified no later than April 1st, or our submission at least no later than April 1st for the new set of endorsement courses. But I would imagine every district has most courses.
Okay, because you were saying that Duval's
Some of them are not, don't have them all covered.
Okay.
Duval's
Yeah, we didn't used
making
to
their
have
teachers
4
pay
until
for
very-
it
Yeah,
themselves.
they're not covering them all.
What, I mean, are you seeing people that are saying, well, I don't wanna do tier 3 interventions anymore? I'm just, put me where I don't have to do that?
You know, they don't say that to me. I've not heard that personally, but through my years as a school administrator, you know, we've had teachers that, if I may be a Latin teacher and I have world history, I had this very specific example on my campus, but I don't want to teach world history anymore, I only want to have Latin. And so they could remove a certification that would make them eligible, but in elementary school, to be honest, in order to teach any of those core content areas, you have to, they're not separated like secondary.
Well, I think that's the core point, and I think that's how utterly, I don't know, you saw that note from the state, right?
Yes, and we were talking about it earlier.
That is a toxic trolling note. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Are we talking about from the DOE?
Yeah.
Can the test
It
administrator wake up a
was as passive aggressive as you're gonna ever see. So, all right, okay, thank you. That's, can I keep going? I'm sorry.
Hurry.
I'm going. Ms. Fortney and I both attended the All Together Now conference yesterday for LGBT kids in schools and et cetera. Couple of things that came out of that. One, Title 4A is a concept I was not aware of, but apparently there's a lot of money to be used on a lot of different things. And most districts have a coordinator. I'm sure that we do. I'm sure we're using it, and I'm not aware of it. But I would love for, follow up to have somebody sort of address what our Title 4A usage is. There's like $60 million that the state has that you can go get. It comes from the feds, but you can go get it to do any number of things that are mostly humane type things. So wanted to throw that out. Two, I think we're an effective way to, and I would think a somewhat non-controversial way to support our LGBT kids who are at an elevated threat for both bullying and mental health issues that come with that is through peer support through what's called GSA clubs. We currently, as I understand it, do not have any in the county. We're one of the few. No, we don't, because I checked. Does not exist. I would urge us to pick 3 or 4 willing schools to try to set up pilots there. I think that would be an enormous value moving ahead. So just wanted to throw that out as well. I would like at the end of the session any statement of thanks or opinion on what the session was to run through the elected board before it goes out. I don't want to be in a position of thanking them again like we did last year. Just I would like to have something that expresses the school district's point of view on how the session went. I think should be there should be some review of it by the, I don't know what that mechanism is, but I just wanted to throw that out there. And I can't read my writing on the on the sixth one, so I'm just gonna stop. I'll try to figure that one out tonight.
Okay, anyone else? Have anything they would like to bring up at this point in time? Ms.
Mine's
Reynolds?
super quick. In June, could we maybe look at doing a half day or a full day to focus on the budget before we start to look over it in July? Sorry, Mike. I just want to, I know there's been a lot of questions about it, and I don't think that's ever going to be something that'll fit in a 1 to 2 hour immediately following a work session.
Right.
So if we could maybe look at doing something in June, we should have the state numbers by then. And
Beforehand, right? When are you slated to bring that to us?
So they finish the session the first week, but we'll
Right.
have, normally we give you updates as to what the new revenue, but we don't ever really get into deep dive of the budget, if that's not true.
I would think, and obviously, I want to make sure we get through the school year because our kids are what's important. But if we could maybe after school gets out, just do kind of a deeper dive of what.
Tentatives, you definitely want it somewhere in between May,
Yeah, sometime in the
first week of
summer.
May and middle of July.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I think after school gets out would be ideal. if possible. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Okay, we have concluded our work session, and board members, we have 4:30 discipline cases.